News Weekly. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Batman News Weekly. This is episode 169. Nice. And today we are going to be starting off the freaking podcast a little differently because we're going to go into a comic book we've been waiting to talk about for a month now. We're going to be talking about Batman 130. But if you are somebody that does not listen to the comic reviews, we will have timestamps on the YouTube. I don't know how long this is going to go for, so I can't really tell you jump ahead X amount. But for the other things we will be talking about on the podcast is we do have a lot of James Gunn news, of course, talking about DC Studios, how he has been overseeing the movies that are going to be coming out already, like Aquaman, Flash, and stuff like that. So that's pretty interesting. He has kind of let it be known about some things he likes or doesn't like, and so we probably won't see those things in the DCU. And we also have him talking to the freaking Batgirl directors. So there's a lot of James Gunn news that we're going to be covering. Also, new Batman movie that's going to be coming out and some Flash news. So stick around for that. And then, of course, we'll do viewer questions and the other comics that we have for this week. But this week, Clay, we are talking about, finally, Batman 130. This is a book that I texted you saying, dude, read 130 because I cannot stop laughing.
I did not believe you. Of course, there is no hiding the fact that we have not liked this run of Batman.
Yeah.
There is no hiding that you, especially, have hated Chip Zdarsky on Batman almost as much as Tynion, if not more.
Yeah. The thing is, I think the difference was Tynion made Batman a fifth wheel. Like, Batman never felt like the main character in his book, whereas Zdarsky is just doing stupid shit with Batman, in my opinion. And repeating stories. That's the one thing I will say with Tynion. At least he tried to do something different. Even though I didn't like it, I didn't think it was good. He wasn't doing a repeat story. He brought in a whole bunch of characters that I didn't like, but at least he was trying something different. Now, we've learned that it seems like he was just doing things week to week because he didn't have a contract or whatever, from what we've heard reports. But Zdarsky knows he's going to be in this for the long run, and it just seems like he's trying to bring Grant Morris, the Wish Grant Morrison. So it's just like, bro, I don't know. He just keeps repeating a bunch of storylines, which, as we're going to talk about this freaking comic book issue, is more of the same, in my opinion. But again, I texted Clay that I am
re-looking at these pages right now.
I could not stop laughing at what happened in this book. So we know in Batman 129 that Batman was left to die out in space. Now, I called it out in 129. I call bullshit that the Batsuit, the normal everyday Batsuit, especially a Batsuit that Aquaman had on hand, is able to be, I can believe, fire resistant and bulletproof. I could believe that because that's just like weaving and stuff like that. I could believe that totally fine. But it can also survive the coldness, the extreme coldness of space. All right, a little bit of stretching, but also has an oxygen tank on it somehow that provides oxygen with an oxygen mask that perfectly goes on the cowl. When did he put that on? I don't think they showed that in every panel. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I don't believe that. And it doesn't help that we had just read around that time Wonder Woman 793 that had Batman go to space because they were in the Watchtower, and he had a mechanical suit on.
I'm looking at the very beginning pages. So what ends up happening, the mask comes down and protects him from dying in space. But the problem becomes, okay, well, then you're breathing carbon dioxide, right? So it looks like he actually finds
I know he finds an extra thing of oxygen, which makes it worse because he's able to plug that oxygen into his mask somehow. The mask. And if you look on the previous issues, because I went back to look, there's no like tube or anything on that mask. So it just magically connects.
Yeah.
Here's another problem with it is if that mask comes down, Clay, where does it come down from? Because his eyes are right there, and that means it would be bigger his mouth is bigger than his eye area. So it would have to come down.
See,
if
so
it comes
this
from the
is
sides.
this is the very awkward conversation that we're going to be having today, because we can't have it both ways. I
Yes,
thought
I
about
know.
this a lot. We can't have it both ways, in the sense of, like, we were complaining that Tynan was trying to be too realistic with trying to calculate the angular projection of his grappling hook, so that way
Yes.
he wouldn't rip his arm off and all. Some of that is cool, and we've said, if done correctly, it can be cool. In the same way, people go, oh, well, it's comics, it's fine. You need to have the literal perfect balance when it comes to Batman.
Yes.
Because the whole point of Batman is that he is a human who is
doing superhero things,
but is stronger than the average human, because he's trained his body.
He's supposed to be peak human existence, is what he's supposed to be.
Peak human existence. But again, peak human existence. So the fact that he is vulnerable also makes things interesting.
Yes.
This, I could almost believe Chip would have been like, oh, well, if he didn't have the oxygen mask, he didn't have the trunks, small spoiler into that conversation. And if he would have just landed on Earth, he would have been fine. Like, I feel like there is a other multiverse Earth that Chip had that conversation and was like, oh, I don't need to do all this explanation to see if Batman can survive, which is absolutely insane to think about. But I think that when it comes to the mask, I can genuinely say, okay, the mask coming out of, like, maybe all four sides of the mouth guard, or his mouthpiece, like maybe up where, like, the upper lip is, the cheeks, and the lower lip, if it, like, connected like that, I could totally believe it. It's fine. I'm okay with that. Now, it does become problematic when it comes to the idea of, like, connecting the tube. I think it would have been even more of, like, a dire situation if he only had the oxygen to, like, propel himself. You know? And while, putting it on, okay, whatever, he's a human, he needs oxygen, people are going to defend that, until they're blue in the face, as far as, like, why Chip needed to do it and how it made sense. Everything else, though, you cannot defend.
So I have no problem with the oxygen mask. I'm just pointing out that, like, I just thought it was kind of ridiculous, but I have no problem with it. I could let that go. It doesn't bother me. I could have been like, oh yeah, off panel, he just got a mask out of his belt, and put it on, and it automatically connects to the cowl somehow, because I could believe that. I could suspend disbelief for it. But the problem is, I have no problem with comic booky stuff. My problem is, and I had so many fucking discussions on Twitter with people about this shit. You, as a writer, your main goal is to make the story believable. It doesn't matter if you have orcs and dragons and all of this shit. At the end of the day, your job is to make me believe. Game of Thrones made people believe for 7 fucking seasons that there were people that were dead that can walk, and they were called White Walkers, that there was fucking magic at times, and that fucking dragons flew through the sky. People believe that shit. In season 8, possible spoilers here, there is one moment where a guy runs, because they're all about to die, runs like across America, essentially, to get to the kingdom to get help. He does it in 1 episode. He runs that far. And people were like, bullshit, this season fucking sucks. Because it's so ridiculous. And that's what happened here. And Chip tried to explain it. He tried. He gave you the math. He brought what is that guy's Dyson? Neil deGrasse Tyson. He brought him into the fucking book. He explained space. Like, he fucking did this. It was too much. It was too many things, because this is the sequence of events. Batman is flying through space, and he's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get back to Earth. So there's all the planes are destroyed because Failsafe destroyed them. Oh, look, there's oxygen on the planes. I can connect that to get more oxygen. I'm like, okay, smart move. I would see Batman do that. He's like, oh, the next thing I can do, I can rip the booster off of this plane. And I'm like, okay, I don't think that's how planes work necessarily. I don't think you can just rip an engine off and the engine works by itself with a whole bunch of other components, but whatever. Then he rips this thing off with, they don't show him using any tools. Like, I think he just rips it off with strength. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, I can imagine that he used tools off panel, whatever. Then this booster just so happens to have a button that he can use to manually boost himself. And I'm like, okay, I guess there might be a button to manually boost something. I don't think that's how things work, but okay, whatever. I thought it was smart that he was using the gas from his grappling gun, though, to kind of like, you know, pace himself in the right direction.
Yeah,
that was bad.
That was very interesting. Yeah.
Yes. So he's doing all these things. We get the math that he's on the moon. He's on the fucking moon. And in realistic terms, ladies and gentlemen, it takes 3 days to get to the moon. From natural IRL humans, it takes 3 days to get to the moon. So Batman's on the moon. He uses this booster. He has 12 hours of oxygen. They show this. So you would think that doesn't work out. But according to the math in the book, Earth is like 240,000 miles from the moon or some bullshit. So, or maybe it's million miles. I don't know how long it is. But the booster can get there in 6 hours. That's how fast these planes are. Now, comic book accuracy, if we're doing that, Batman does apparently have a plane that's as fast as the Flash or almost as fast as the Flash. I don't think the Flash is fast in space, though. He needs to be on the ground, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know how that works when space comes into play. But anyways, there are super fast planes in the DC universe. Fine, whatever. So he starts using this booster, and he's like, I got to do it at the proper times because I can't do the G-force. Pretty sure if he can survive a Flash plane, he should be able to survive this just fine. Just saying. The Flash is going like at the speed of light, which I'm pretty sure is faster than what they're going here. Whatever. I'm gonna let it go. I'm trying here. Trying to enjoy the book. He's using it. He has to like, somehow he's like, I got to do it in spurts or I'll go unconscious. Then he gets into Earth's orbit. And apparently he blacks out, according to the book. He blacks out for a little bit. And he's like, oh no, we're free falling. And so his oxygen tank explodes. I'm not going to lie to you, Clay. I didn't know this next part until you pointed it out to me because I was just laughing so much. So I'm like laughing reading this fucking book. Clay starts reading it and he mentions in something. He's like, I can't believe he said, oh man, I told Clark trunks were a good idea. And I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? So I went back and I looked at this book. Batman is falling and he's like, my heat can take the suit. Because there was a big explosion. And then he's all like, but the mask can't. Meaning he's not going to have oxygen on his free fall, so he's probably going to die. Because apparently if you have I don't know, the science behind a free fall is you usually black out. Like if you were to fall from the moon to Earth and you didn't have sufficient like suit or anything, you would black out. I even think if you had a space suit, you would black out, according to science. I could be wrong there. If you're a science person that listens to this, correct me. I asked this on Twitter and nobody hit me up. So go for it. You have something?
So the main reason why he is putting on his trunks.
Yeah.
So he says right here, suit can't take the suit can take the heat, but the oxygen mask can't. So it breaks off.
Yeah.
He says, I told Clark, or he laughs. He says, I told Clark trunks are a good idea. He wraps them around his face because he's trying to protect his mouth and his face from the re-entry from Earth. Yes. He is literally on fire at this point.
Yeah.
I can't, Juice. No. I don't. How? Why?
You want to know? I think the thought process that Chip had here, because I was like, this is fucking stupid. Like you don't make Batman wear his underwear on his face. Like that's something a bully does to a kid he's picking on. Like you just don't do that. This is what I'm pretty sure this is what Chip did. Because everybody's asked, why do they wear underwear on their outside? That's so stupid. Like everybody's always said that since the end of time, right? It's as old as, why does you can't tell freaking Clark Superman with his glasses on? You know what I mean? It's also that he wanted to make the underwear a utility. He wanted it to have purpose. And so that's what he was doing here. And if he says anything otherwise, then why the fuck did you do it? There are just certain things you don't do with characters. You're never supposed to make your character look silly.
The only fucking reason why these characters have quote unquote underwear on the outside is because they were supposed to be replicating the strong man of the 1930s.
Yeah.
Like, that is it. And the look stuck. That is honestly it. The fact that you're wanting to, because I did see in one of your conversations on Twitter, there was one person that was like, oh, well, I actually really liked the MacGyver of it all. And how he had to really just pick everything out and survive. Yes, some of that can be great. But like, Batman is falling to his death right now. And he's all like, ha, 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 I told Clark. Ha, ha.
Yeah.
I told him.
Underwear.
I was right.
Yeah.
It's just like, it takes you out of the fucking book.
Yes. He, Chip Zdarsky will now be known as the guy that made Batman an underwear sniffer. So that is his new thing. Look, you just don't do certain things with Batman. Kevin Smith, and people have talked shit about Kevin Smith for this. Kevin Smith made Batman pee himself during year one is one thing that he did. And everybody always gives him shit. And like, Kevin Smith tries to like be realistic about it. He's like, dude, in reality, like firefighters actually go into burning houses and they do that too. And I'm like, it's a fucking comic book, Kevin Smith. Like, you don't need to, he's not human like a firefighter. And people are gonna be like, oh, you just said that he could do anything. It still needs to be believable. It doesn't need to be that believable.
Like I said, it needs to be the perfect balance.
Yes, exactly.
There needs to be stakes, but there also needs to be these moments of like, oh, that was badass. Batman falling from the moon with actually nothing to help him actually survive.
Yeah.
That is not like, you have jumped the shark.
Yes.
Is the phrasing that I had used when we first read this a month ago.
So it's not even over. So Batman's sniffing his underwear as he's falling to the sky, to the freaking earth. And he goes and again, I know where Chip was trying to come from. He was trying to be like, this is how calculated Batman can be, and this is how much of a badass he is. I just think it was too many things all at once. And this is the perfect summary of Chip's run so far. He does too much, and there's no story, in my opinion. He's telling you there's a story, but it's just been a big-ass chase scene, and there's no substance, in my opinion. Batman's falling to the thing. He's trying to use his cape to actually, like, land or whatever, and he does it. All right. He lands, and he slams into the ground. He doesn't, like, glide and just roll or something.
Think of an asteroid hitting Earth.
Yes.
That's what Batman did.
Slams into the ground. And he was able to get himself to the Fortress of Solitude, which I think is insane. He was able to predict that properly. Whatever, comic bookies, I'll let it go. But he slams into the ground, and then he gets up like nothing just happened. No broken bones, nothing. And that is a big issue for me. I can believe Batman can fall from the moon, but I can't believe that he wouldn't be uninjured.
Batman has had broken ribs, fractured skulls. Like, he has had major injuries patrolling Gotham. And you're telling me falling from the moon is a fucking cakewalk?
Yeah, that's my problem. And that's what I was telling, because some people were trying to like get into the fucking Halo jumping and doing all that, trying to bring in all this science to say that I'm wrong.
It's
and I'm
not
like,
Halo.
Yeah, it's the moon. He wouldn't have 3 days. He had 12 hours of oxygen. Like, you had to suspend so much disbelief for this that it just took me out of the book. And here's the problem. I have mentioned the best things about Batman are when he's able to do something or his friends come in when he needs the help. We talked about it the most. One of my favorite scenes, I don't know if it's with Clay, is when Batman destroys some stuff and he's free falling from the sky and he's just all chill and he's all like, Batman to Justice League, I need help because I'm falling and I cannot fly. And like, you know what I mean? And then Superman swoops in and saves his life. And like, you could have used this moment here because once Batman lands, he gets to the Fortress of Solitude and Superman wakes up. and he's just all like, oh, I heard him. He heard Batman slam into the ground, which is crazy. So like, I mean, obviously Superman can do that. But another thing that was pointed out by Drew in the Discord, I don't know if you read this conversation.
I did read a part of it, yeah.
Yeah. So crazily enough, Drew was all like, dude, how long was Batman in Atlantis? 2 weeks.
Was it 1 or 2
I read
weeks?
it. I posted it in the Discord. I went back, got the comic book, posted it in the Discord. He was in Atlantis for 2 weeks, suffering from his injuries that he sustained from Failsafe. Superman took longer. That means Superman, he was also dying because they got hurt on the same fucking day, same fight. Superman has been in the red sun bed or whatever for 2 weeks.
Well, and that's the other fucking issue.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna tell me that because right there, and this is just a comic book thing with me, it's not red sun gets rid of his powers. Why is he in red sunlight?
I don't know. Chip's the writer, man. So like people are already defending this. I had somebody saying that they're like, oh, you're serious about this? Because I posted it on Twitter. They said Batman just got beat up a little bit. Superman got poisoned. And I'm like, okay. So Superman's injuries.
Superman is superhuman.
Yeah.
His technology helps his advanced biology heal faster. That's the whole point of.
Yeah.
Annoying.
If we were to take every form of Superman that's been around, we can go to Zack Snyder, who sent, I mean, this might have even happened in the book as well, because I think he pulled it from something. Superman has ate a nuke, essentially, went up to the sky, and got healed in the same fucking day within hours and came back to save the day.
Yeah.
And you're telling me him getting hit with some kryptonite is gonna put him out for 2 weeks? 2 weeks and a few days, mind you, because freaking Batman wakes up and then Failsafe does it. They go to the moon. They do all this stuff. Like, so I just thought that was another thing that I thought was really stupid about this book. Look, I love Batman. I love the idea of Batman beating the shit out of Superman. We've had this discussion on this podcast. I think Batman can beat Superman, but if we were trying to be like super logical, I think Superman wins 99% of the time. And it's just the possibility that Batman can win is what I enjoy about Batman. I do not like that Zdarsky is making Superman look like a little bitch in this book. Like, he has gotten bodied twice. Yeah. Twice by Failsafe. And I understand it's Batman. Batman made it, which that's going to be a problem later on in this book with the backup. Is, Batman freaking save, like, he can beat Superman, so whatever. And I'm just like, okay. So, yeah, Batman gets to the Fortress of Solitude after falling from the fucking moon. Superman wakes up. He's not even 100% yet after 2 weeks of chilling in this bed, which Robin, another thing Drew pointed out, he was like, why hasn't Robin changed? He's been in the same suit for 2 weeks, and he still has the patch on his neck from when he got shot. So the timelines here are so bad. I could believe that, 2 weeks after getting shot in the neck, you probably still have a bandage on. But why are you still wearing your Robin suit? Like, for 2 weeks straight? So, like, whatever. That's just another thing you just let go. It is what it is. Superman then puts on a super suit. I don't know. Does this suit have a name? I don't know what it is.
So this suit in particular, I can't remember the name of it, but it is, like, something that is canonically correct.
Okay.
He has several suits. One in particular helps with sun absorption. Another one helps with that is completely made with lead, so that way it helps with the blocking of kryptonite. This, I can't remember what suit it was. But I like the design. I really do. But again, problem with this part is the fact that Superman literally says, I wasn't prepared for you last time. I am now. And then continues to just get fucking beat down by Failsafe. And it's fucking embarrassing. Yeah. It's so stupid.
Yeah, it was so lame. Clay had pointed out, he was like, I thought it was so stupid about the pressure points. Because freaking Failsafe's like, I know Kryptonian anatomy and I know your pressure points. And like, granted, yes, Batman has done something like that in the past with criminals. But I just thought it was kind of like, it's too much. Like, you can do too much.
The fact that he got the pressure point, I can believe that multiple alien entities have pressure points. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is like, oh, this one pressure point gives you involuntary heat vision, and like Superman can't control his heat vision now. That's stupid.
Yeah. So that happens, right? And then so Batman and Robin are just like, oh, Superman got bodied again. We're going to need to do something. And he creates like a serum, and he's all like, this will hopefully give him humanity or some bullshit. I don't know. At this point, I was just like, this book is fucking dumb. And what ends up happening is Batman and Robin go to fight Failsafe. They somehow are able to inject this thing into Failsafe at one point because, you know, previously Batman did use a gun, which somebody pointed out in the comments that we'll get to it eventually. But like used a gun on Failsafe, it weakened him. That's where they put this injection, and it is supposed to make Failsafe hopefully change his programming. And it doesn't do anything, or it's supposed to give him like humanity or whatever. I don't really care. He's supposed to be more like Batman. And then it comes down to this showdown where Robin's like, no, you can't do this. And Batman's like, it's okay, Tim. It's fine. And he like talks about like, oh, I guess I can't change the world or whatever. Are my family still going to die if I die here? Like,
and then you see Batman with pupils again for like the 5th time in Chip's run.
Yeah, no, 5th time like in this book. What do you mean?
True.
Like if you go through this whole book, and I mentioned this in the Discord, it really pissed me off because George Jimenez is drawing Drake with no eyes, but Batman with eyes all the time. And you can't say it's a way, again, that stupid thing of like, eyes show emotion. There is literally a panel in here where Tim Drake, after Batman, you know, meets his demise, quote unquote, Drake is screaming for his life. And it looks, you feel the emotion in that panel. And he doesn't have pupils or anything. It's just wide eyes. You don't need fucking eyes to show emotion. I'm tired of that fucking saying. Anyways, so Batman is telling his goodbyes to Tim, and he gets shot with the laser beam, and he just disintegrates. Tim freaks out, and he's like, you were supposed to be different. I don't know why. I mean, he was trying to kill them the whole time. He's like, you're supposed to be different. You're supposed to have changed. You're supposed to show mercy. And he was like, that was mercy, Tim. Beep, beep. And then he like flies off into the sun like Poochie from fucking the Simpsons episode where he's got to take off. And I don't know if he's going to self-destruct or something, like because he's like mission complete. And then what is the point of Failsafe after Batman goes rogue? You know what I mean? And here's the thing. He was red the whole issue, right? At the end of this book, whatever they injected him with, he turned blue. So I'm pretty sure that means that's going to be good Failsafe, and we're going to see him later, and he's going to team up with Batman at some point. Guarantee it.
He's gonna be the leader of Batman Incorporated.
Yeah, he's going to do some shit, and he's going to be a good guy now. But the very last panel, or the very last page of this is a full-page spread of Batman teleported somewhere else, and he's like burnt to a crisp. And that's pretty much where it's going to end. Now, the solicits of the next 2 books are kind of talking about how Batman isn't in Gotham and Gotham's going to shit. And the backup story is going to be Tim Drake trying to find out where Batman is. So, have you heard that before? Have we ever had a story before, Clay, where Batman disappears and people kind of still look for him or think he's dead? Just curious.
Yes. Yeah. But also, Tim Drake literally saw Failsafe kill Batman. Yeah. And then Tim Drake's like, he's not dead.
Yeah. See, so there again, we can't have it both ways. That yes, annoying, but Batman has done the same with Superman. So, you know, like there have been issues where Superman disappears and Batman has looked for him and he ends up finding him or whatever. We kind of just learned that. I guess did that in World's Finest. That kind of just happened.
Well, not only that, but like in Tynan's detective run when Tim Drake died.
Yeah.
Batman didn't really look for Tim Drake, so I guess he's like,
he had a lot
I'll
to do.
look
He's
for
kind of
you.
busy. I mean, look, when I say a lot of people don't care about Tim Drake, okay, apparently it's Batman too. I'm just throwing it out there. Because Batman's like, you actually have parents. Who fucking cares about you? Like, come on. You didn't go through our trauma. Your parents didn't die, Tim Drake. Well, depending on what earth we're on. Which, by the way, I feel like I read something recently where in continuity right now, his parents are actually dead. I just don't know what I was reading.
Really?
Yeah, so I could be wrong there. But in New 52, his parents were there, and I don't think they re-killed him again, but yeah, there's so much has happened since. Anyways, I've been saying this for the last, few podcasts that we've covered this book. I have said Failsafe seems kind of pointless. And I think it's just kind of dumb because if his goal is to stop Batman, but he is Batman, he wouldn't kill Batman. I think it's just dumb, man. Batman should have also just turned himself in. It's like, if you're Batman, then I'll just turn myself in if you think that I'm going to die. If you're the world's greatest detective, like I am, because you are Batman, you should be able to figure out that Penguin's not dead. Which, again, we haven't fucking heard anything about that. We didn't see anybody try to be like, well, let's just find out if Penguin's alive or not. We already saw Catwoman find Penguin. Kind of fucked up for Catwoman to find Penguin and not be like, hey, Bruce, I found Penguin. You know what I mean? Even though she's like, I'll keep your secret. You know what I mean? But I just think, again, it is what it is. And it's not like Catwoman has never told Batman secrets before when she promised not to. We saw that a lot in Batcat. You know what I mean? She told all of, like, oh, Joker's about to blow up some kids. Like, you should go save that. He goes and does it or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. A lot of people were saying that, or one of the conversations I was having is, like, everybody was saying that what's happening in Catwoman right now, which we've kind of talked about all that bullshit. Well, not all of it, but we'll talk about it again in the future. But everything in Catwoman is happening before Failsafe, which I don't think those timelines add up. I feel like they're fairly similar, or they're kind of like things have happened in both that wouldn't make sense. Also, remember how in issue 1, I called bullshit on how it said then and now at the start of the book?
Yeah.
I want to go back to that because a conversation I was having on Twitter was saying that the now, like everything that happened in Batman 125, everything before the now page was all in the past. Which makes no sense because Tim Drake got shot in that book and he's been in this current page. So the now wouldn't make sense because it happened in the before, if that is the logical thing. And this is why I'd say fucking artists and writers need to pay really big attention to those headlines when they do it, because you fuck up a story like this. And he didn't do that. It's cool to show flashbacks, but you need to make sure you put like now or in the present. Like you need to do that. And he didn't do that in book 1. I don't know. So it's been 6 issues, Clay. It is the first arc of Chip Zdarsky's run. This was the most ridiculous fucking book I've read in a long time. I feel like he's on levels with Tynion for me right now. Like, if not surpassing it.
I wouldn't say he's surpassing it yet, but he is definitely, he's basically where we were, I feel like, at the end of the first arc with Tynion, with the idea of like, with Tynion being his gimmick of the gadgets. We're like, okay, we're kind of tired of this. This needs to stop. We need to move forward. How can this be better? And I feel like Chip is the exact same way in the sense of, hey, you're making Batman do really stupid things. That needs to stop. We're kind of tired of it. Let's move on. Let's see if we can do anything better. And it's mind-boggling. I know Drew was really joking around in the beginning of Chip's run with the idea of possibly just like copy-pasting what he was doing in Daredevil.
Yeah.
And placing it in Batman. I think I would have enjoyed that a lot better.
Yeah, probably. Like, at least in that one, he gets married.
And the idea of like, because a lot of people are probably worried about that. Like, oh, you're just going to make Batman just like Daredevil and like we'll see all the same story again. I would have much rather had that story.
Yeah.
Than what we are getting now.
So I had a lot, like I said, I had a lot of conversations about this. Okay, I kind of veered off is what I do. It's how my brain works. Failsafe doesn't make sense, Clay. And let me tell you why. I don't know if you read the backup. or if you were caring about the backup at all. Okay.
No.
So at the end of this, I'm not going to lie. I think Chip Zdarsky's backup for Zur-En Ra was a good story. I think it was a good way to try to make Zur-En Ra interesting. And I love the art for it because it was like that old school kind of art. Tom King uses a lot of artists similar to this for his stories. It had a noir type of feel. And so I really enjoyed it. But in that book, they're like, when Batman's kind of like in his mind or whatever, I think his mother shows up and his mother's like, this isn't you. And she pulls off Zur-En Ra's cowl and his face is just blank. And he has no eyes or anything like that. And she's like, this isn't you. Like, you got to be true to yourself. And like, this isn't like, whatever. You're not a villain. You're not a crook. You don't kill. Yeah. And so Batman ends up beating the Joker or whatever. And he specifically says in that book that he goes back and he does more training to make sure Zur-En Ra fits the Batman guidelines. He does Batman's rules. He is Batman. So we saw in this book Zur-En Ra act not like Batman, but then Chip writes that Batman makes Zur-En Ra exactly like Batman. So that's already contradicting yourself. But then we had a theory, which I don't know if it might have been Vasan that was saying this. I'm not too sure. It might have been somebody else that I think maybe I was talking to Vasan on Twitter about this. They said that they think Zur-En Ra made Failsafe, so he probably kills or he does whatever, right? But now that theory doesn't work anymore because Batman fixed the Zur-En Ra personality to make him have Batman's rules. So that means Zur-En Ra doesn't kill. And that means Failsafe wouldn't kill. So that throws a whole fucking wrench into this whole thing. But then we just saw Failsafe kill, quote unquote. But are we going to get it? Because people could be like, well, maybe in a later issue, Failsafe's going to be like, I teleported Batman to where he actually needed to be. You know what I mean? And that could...
Then why did he say eliminated?
Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. But here's the thing. Chip hasn't even fixed the Batcat bullshit that he had in issue 1 in his first issue. That's still kind of going on. Are we going to learn about that later? Because we already see one cover in 132 where Catwoman's going to backstab him or some bullshit like that. But it could be on another Earth now. So maybe that's totally different. Maybe what if Catwoman is just on another Earth now? Like, I don't know what they're trying to do. We won't find out until the next issue of where... Okay, apparently Batman's not going to be a thing, and it might just be Bruce Wayne for the next 2 issues. Because I read that. Because somebody said, like, Batman's not in Gotham, but what can Bruce Wayne do? Or something in the solicit for 132 mentioned some shit like that. And I'm just like...
That's a little weird.
Yeah, all right, whatever. Wouldn't be the first time that we have a non-Batman in Gotham and Bruce Wayne being Bruce Wayne. Wonder who wrote that? Scott Snyder. But like, you know, I don't understand that. But I want to talk about something else, Clay, because there's something that really pisses me off that people say when it comes to adults enjoying comic books. And I got this, and it's funny because like, I got this comment after I was having the discussion about, you know, talking about Batman falling from the moon and stuff. Somebody jumped in and said, it's a comic book. It's pretend. You are an adult. You should know that.
Whoa. Let's quote it correctly. It's a comic book, babe.
No. That's the second comment. That's the second comment.
Okay.
So it goes, it's a comic book. It's pretend. You're an adult. You should know that. Which I followed up. Just because something is pretend doesn't mean it's free of criticism. Which is this is what it is. I was talking about how Chip Zdarsky did not make this believable enough for me. To which they followed up, never said it wasn't free of criticism, babe. Complaints about something not being realistic is dumb, especially when it's been a staple for the industry for decades. This is what I want to talk about because I call bullshit. Because now this person is saying anything that is industry standard, it should be fine. And I want to be like, okay, if you want to play that game, then I don't ever want to hear anybody bitch about female characters being sexualized or being used as pawns for a story. Because for the longest time, that is all females were used for in comics. They were the damsel in distress. They weren't good enough to like save the lives of men and all this other bullshit. They couldn't even lead their own books for some parts.
I wonder if that's why DC has decided not to do any female books. They're like, fuck, we can't make them sexy anymore. Don't write them. Just don't write them.
No more women. We only have men now. The men are sexy. We'll have them with their shirts off all the time. So I call bullshit on that. And I brought up the Game of Thrones thing too. That show is completely unbelievable if you're going to be realistic about it. Dragons and magic and dead people walking and all this stuff. But we believed the fuck out of that show until season 8 when they started rushing things and they just started doing a bunch of shit that just didn't seem believable in that world. That is what Chip Zdarsky is doing with Batman. I could believe Batman can be floating through space. I could believe Batman can fall through the moon. But when you put all of this shit together, and I've seen better ways of Batman surviving things. The problem is, and I mentioned this to Clay, the easy out to Batman falling from the moon is Superman saves him. Is somebody saves him. Wonder Woman can fly. She could have showed up and saved him. She didn't get beat up in that issue, if I remember. I don't even know if she was in that issue when they all showed up.
I'd have to look back, actually.
Yeah.
Let me
so,
look back.
Anybody could have saved Batman, but the problem is, and I want to definitely say this is the reason why Chip didn't do it, was because in, I think it was 128, he had just used Aquaman to save his ass. So Aquaman did the really cool thing, which I really liked. Batman fell into the water and Aquaman saved him from drowning. I thought that was cool. He can't have 2 saves back to back, but which I think is kind of bullshit because he had Superman get his ass beat back to back. Yeah. So why can't you do 2 back to backs? I think it would have been so much better if Batman's falling to his death and he's like, I'm not going to be able to survive this. You could have put holes in his cape or something like that from the explosion, whatever. You could have just, you did all this other shit. You could have done anything you wanted. And then Superman wakes up from his healing chamber and flies out of there to save Batman. And then they both, world's finest, team up to fight fucking Failsafe. That's so much more epic than Batman hitting the ground and being like, I am Batman and I didn't break nothing. I just call bullshit. Dude, you could have done this whole sequence. Batman hits the ground and he just says, my lungs collapsing. I have a fracture in my right leg. I can't feel my right arm. That's all you needed to say. Say that he had some injuries. But just because he fucking gets up like he's Goku, I'm just like, bro, he's human. You can't I understand he's a badass, but this was just fucking ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know. I think it is just really, really bullshit to have this mindset that comics are pretend and blah, 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 anything goes. It's no, that's just bad writing. And just because something has happened in the industry for a long time doesn't keep it from criticism. Are we going to just be oh, well, there wasn't people of color in comic books for a really long time, so they shouldn't be heroes either? Fuck that saying. Times are changing. Shit's being a little bit more believable. Batman doesn't do a lot of things he did 30, 40 years ago. I'm sorry. He just doesn't do that. And the same thing with Superman and all these other characters. Times changed. We started phasing out what was silly. The silly stuff happened in the 60s, Batman had a sword belt and all this other bullshit. But I just thought this was so fucking ridiculous. And I'm glad for once, it seems like we're not the only ones that don't like this book. I know you have another podcast you were on. I don't know what their views are on this, but I saw that BatmanNews.com thought this was kind of ridiculous. CBR thought this was ridiculous. They said that Chip Zdarsky spent so much time on the space part that everything else in this issue felt extremely rushed. And so, I was like, okay. And I've actually seen people on Twitter also think that the space thing was stupid. So I was just breath of fresh air because I do feel like we are often the ones that are, against the fence defending our opinions. But I'm glad other people actually thought this was pretty stupid because I didn't find it believable.
It actually does surprise me. And you did share a lot of the more negative reviews on Discord. Yeah. I was surprised to see so many. I'm looking back at 128 when the Justice League appeared to help out Batman. Wonder Woman is not a part of that. I feel like if you have Wonder Woman there and you have the entire Trinity and the Justice League, and Failsafe still wins, you got to call bullshit.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, if they are going with current timelines, then her mother just died recently. So that could be the reason why she's not there. She could be on Themyscira or something like that. But again, it makes it even worse if that is the case, because Superman and Batman went to the freaking tower and they were like, hey, if you need anything, we're here for you because we're your best friends or whatever. And Batman had a spacesuit on. So you know, it doesn't help. You know,
Yeah.
the continuity there, and like I don't understand it. But I just don't think Chip and Teenie Howard, for one, care about timelines very well at all. And I just think this is really weird. And I think Chip is writing Batman like the fans online that think Batman can do anything at any time, no matter what. Like Batman will always get out of it. I like to think that too. I like to think Batman has a plan for everything, but I also like to see Batman in danger and that there are times that he can't get out of it and he gets saved by his friends. Yeah. I like that too. But you could have had, dude, it was 2 weeks. Like you could have had fucking Tim Drake get a spaceship from the Fortress of Solitude and fly up to Batman. Like you could have done a bunch of different things instead of Batman falling from the moon and slamming into the ground. Like just unbelievable to me. I think that's enough ranting about this book. Batman is an underwear sniffer now, and you guys kind of got to live with it, everybody. But anyways, we'll be talking. We'll probably have a lot of comments about this on this particular issue. But let's move on to the man, James Gunn, talking about a whole bunch of things for the DCU, ladies and gentlemen, because man, a lot going on here, Clay. I don't even know if you have this in your stuff, but did you update this notes to include the gorilla stuff?
I did see that. I know that you had posted it in the movies chat on Discord. Yeah. He has a quote here that says, because somebody asked him, or somebody saying, pushing for DC to up their gorilla limit by 1. Its future entirely relies on relies on it. Look into this, James Gunn. And this was a quote tweet of somebody saying, gorillas sell. DC had to implement a gorilla limit. It says here on some sort of Google search, finally, all the editors wanted to use gorilla covers, and he said no more than 1 a month. Soon they will push that 1 gorilla a month rule to the limit. DC's sci-fi fantasy horror titles such as Strange Adventures and Tales of the Unexpected have since become notorious for their gorilla covers. And so James Gunn said, as co-chairman and CEO of DC Studios, I vow to the public at large and you, the fans, that I will break off the shackles of our limited imagination and will abide by no gorilla limits whatsoever. And he did the infinity symbol twice and did a gorilla emoji.
Yeah.
And he proceeded to post pictures of Ultra Humanite, Gorilla Grodd. Oh shoot, what is her name? The one that was recently on Doom Patrol. I can't remember her name. Mala is so I thought this was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
And again, we always talk about this. James Gunn is a person that knows the source material.
Yeah.
And he's going to be somebody that's like, okay, it felt like there was limitations with the previous DCEU because it was very defined and it was only solidified to the Justice League. Whereas I feel like James is wanting to actually create a universe and not just a team, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because imagine if the MCU was only limited to the Avengers. Like, they would have already run its course already.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been over. And especially James making something like Guardians of the Galaxy in the MCU, you know he wants to bring in some of the random shit that DC has. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting. I wonder if he'll bring in the gorilla that Dick Grayson fucked. Because that was a story at one point. I think she can shapeshift from a woman to a gorilla. So I think that's the point. It's in the When He Was a Spy, that book.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know why. It's at the tail end of it too, so I don't really remember it too well. But I remember the beginning of that story was really good. But anyways, so yeah. So James Gunn has done a lot of things. So the first thing is Gunn confirms that he is helping guiding the movie releasing next year that are not officially a part of his slate. So Flash, Flashpoint. We have Aquaman 2. We have Shazam and Blue Beetle, right? That's a four videos.
Yes.
Maybe it's 5. Is there something else?
Next year, first one will be Shazam, then Flash, then Blue Beetle, and then Aquaman 2. There was a Twitter thread of some sorts. I'm trying to go back to it. They had asked Gunn. It might have actually been on. It looks like it might have been on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
They say, "Will this be the first movie under your guidance as co-CEO, or was that Black Adam?" And James Gunn says, "Peter and I will help to guide the already filmed projects for the next year, but the new slate won't start until after Aquaman 2. And then somebody else commented and said, "The next 5 films have nothing to do with you, James." And he says, "Damn, I wish you would have told me that before I started giving notes."
Yeah. Got him. He's been punking a lot of people lately, which is funny.
Which is hilarious, but it's still very... I'm still wondering if James Gunn is doing a soft reboot, or we're legitimately continuing the DCEU and just naming it the DCU. Because of some other things that we're hearing here recently that, like, this morning showed up.
I'm surprised somebody doesn't keep asking him that. I mean, I feel like we should just spam that every day. Is this gonna be a soft reboot? This isn't anything that's really going on, but this is for anybody that's listening to this podcast that bitches about race swap characters. Don't think that your characters are gonna stay all white in this universe if they are, because I saw this on this is so big it made it to CBR. But somebody on Twitter asked James Gunn, he was like, "Why another race swap villain? Why not Mark Hamill?" Because this was in reference to I'm forgetting the actor's name, but let me see. I think it goes on the article. Nope. Let's see. I don't know the guy's name. But anyways, the guy from that played the detective on Peacemaker, the black detective guy. I don't know why his name's not around here. Oh, Chuck, I believe, or Shuck. I don't know how to say his last name.
His name is...
Because
I don't know how to pronounce it, to be completely honest.
Because what Gunn says here is that, this person says, "Why not Mark Hamill?" He says, because it says CHUK, Shuck, right?
Yeah.
That's how I would say it. Is the best actor I've worked with. That's why. Has zero to do with race. So he's just trying to get the best actors possible, which I love. That's amazing. I went back and I looked at the person that said this, like their Twitter page, and they quote tweeted this. And he was like, "I've asked so many things. Why did he respond to this one?" And I'm like, because it was the dumbest fucking thing you've said. Like, if you say dumb shit, people are going to respond. Like, that's just how it is. Like, so I thought that was pretty funny. So just FYI, maybe don't say dumb shit to James Gunn if you don't want to get called out. But yeah, so what do you think James Gunn has done with the slate so far? Like before his slate stuff?
I'm sure he is. Of course, I do feel like a lot of these films are already too finished to be like, "Hey, we need to add this," or "Hey, we need to add this," or "Hey, we need to add this." I could easily see them making very simple, like, Easter egg things, like easily put in with like CGI, or possibly even if they are, waiting for pickups as far as like, doing extra filming and whatnot, which I do believe everybody is finished. Possibly putting in a note or two on there. This could also be a marketing thing as well. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily always have to be with the actual film itself. And it could be for planning towards their next sequel. If Jason Momoa is still going to be Aquaman during the reboot, maybe he's making notes on Aquaman 3 already, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. I also agree. I don't think it's going to be anything super drastic. If anything, it's probably just end credit scenes that they can film. You don't need to have crazy CGI with some of these things, right? Like, you could do it all in a practical room. like in a random hotel room if you wanted. They could just meet up. Like the Amanda Waller scene at the end of Suicide Squad wasn't hard to do. It's in a restaurant. Like, you know, she's just like, I have notes. And then Bruce Wayne comes in. He's like, my friends will take care of it. And that's it. That's not, you can shoot that in a day. Like, it's not something that's super hardcore to do. And I think if they want to add something like that, especially if they're going to keep maybe Ben Affleck around, you can have Ben Affleck still continuing to do shit like that, right? But again, I mean, with your main question, is this a soft reboot? So do they all know each other? Do they not know each other? Like, you know what I mean? I think at this point, you can't do it where they don't know each other unless the Flash changes something drastic.
Well, that kind of goes into part of, I know we're still talking about James Gunn, and you know what? Let's just keep on James Gunn for now, and then we will go into the Ben Affleck stuff. Okay. So, one thing from James Gunn also is directors Bilal Fallah and Adil El RB.
We're terrible with names. If you guys don't know this podcast, it's not a disrespecting. We're just fucking terrible. I'm dyslexic, so pronouncing shit is hard.
Who were the directors for the now canceled Batgirl movie?
Yeah.
They have revealed that they have a meeting scheduled with DC Studios CEO James Gunn.
Yep.
So I posted this to the Discord, and your immediate response was, I told you he would make things right.
Yeah.
Again, like I guess my answer does change, because when it came out that they had said that, WB came back to us and said if they ever need us, they hope that we can work with them again, everything else. And I was like, if I was them, I wouldn't work with them ever. You know, they were nearly finished with the movie and then got completely scrapped. With James Gunn being at the helm of things, that does change a lot. Like, I feel like it's in good hands. There's going to be a lot of because James Gunn was one of the individuals that came forward when it actually happened, was like, man, that really sucks, you know?
Yeah.
And had a lot to say for them in particular. My thing is, what about Leslie Grace?
Well, do you think that what would be wild is if they're like, do you want to do a Batgirl movie? I think it's going to do something with Leslie Grace. I think he has a plan for the Bat family or something along those lines, and he wants them to be a part of it. What if he gives them Gotham City Sirens? You know?
I would be
I mean, like maybe another, not Gotham City Sirens. I was going to say the Versus movie, but I think you need to do an actual Birds of Prey, like a good one first.
Yeah.
What if they have like Batgirl, Birds of Prey, you know? And she's building the team together, you know?
Yeah.
So that could be something that I think happens. If you guys hear my dog in the background, he's going crazy because somebody just got
I will admit, I totally forgot you had a dog. So
yeah, I don't, because he poops in my room every fucking day. Even when I take him out and he poops, he does it every fucking time. But anyways, so I think something like that, maybe they won't do that. I think Leslie Grace, I think he'll make that right too. Now, they said they would come back to do another movie. Like they said, if DC calls, we're coming. But they said their one rule now is the movie has to come out. Like, so I guess that's going to be in their contract. Like, the movie has to fucking come out. Now, I do think if they had full creative control over the first movie, I don't think they're going to have that in the second one. Because they're probably, James Gunn's going to be like, we have to watch it. And we have to make sure you're hitting these certain points to actually, you know, to see that this movie comes out. Because if they had full creative control, man, and we're hearing the rumors of the movie was really bad, then they're probably not going to have as much leeway, which is kind of crazy because I think Bad Boys for Life was really good. I liked it. So I'm curious on how bad.
I think we both liked it decently enough. I'm actually looking up something to confirm what a commenter said on this Twitter post about them having the meeting, and it looks like it is fake unless it was a story and I missed it.
The comment is fake, or the them meeting is fake?
No, so somebody says here in the comments of the Twitter post that is stating that they are meeting with James Gunn,
Mm-hmm.
somebody said, "Oh, well, Adil shared this in a story on Instagram." So it wasn't a story. I can't look back at it.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like Adil shared a concept art of Batman Beyond.
Ooh, that would be interesting. That would be nuts. You think that Gunn would do that though? I mean, that would be a way to keep Keaton around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. That would be nuts. But I think it's too early, man. I don't want another Batman right now. Unless you're gonna make sure that that is just the future and they're not gonna cross paths, then fine. But I need to know who Batman's gonna be. All right. I need to know who that's gonna be. Like, I hope Gunn doesn't wait forever on that. I hope his first slate has a Batman movie,
Yeah.
because then I'm like, all right, we're gonna get a Batman. But yeah, I don't want to get held out for so long and we get this new slate and there's no Batman still. Like, that'll be nuts. So
See,
yeah.
I'm on both sides of this. So I would be absolutely floored if there was no Batman on the first slate.
Right.
But at the same time, my idea would be got to make them wait for it. You got to make them really want it. So it's not going to be on the first slate. It's not going to be in the first 3 years of the first, wave of the DC universe.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the next 3 years.
Ooh. Okay.
But see, I feel like it's very contradicting. Like I said, I'm on both sides here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you wait that long for a Batman movie? Because if you wait that long, you still only get the Batman from Matt Reeves every 2 to 3 years. And so, like, you would then kind of stair step them between anywhere from 2 to 3 years apart from each.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, I feel like is too far.
Yeah, I would cancel the Batman and just focus on the DCU. I think that's the best play there. We don't need a bunch of Batman. As Zaslav said, there's not going to be a bunch, and I'm curious on what that means.
Yeah,
I want to know what that means. But yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe we're waiting for the Flash. The Flash maybe is going to change some stuff. We don't really know.
Yeah,
they have to change something.
We do have some news on the Flash, but before we go into that, very last thing on James Gunn, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Somebody sent him a tweet, James Gunn, and said, "Please, for the love of God, just tell me that you're going to utilize Condiment King."
Yeah.
And James Gunn's only response was, "No."
Yeah, and then I think it was Raphael that said he probably read somewhere that James Gunn doesn't like Condiment King. Maybe that was during Suicide Squad interviews. I don't really know. But I think it's kind of dumb because he used somebody like Polka Dot Man, which I think Polka Dot Man is just as dumb as Condiment King. But I think maybe Polka Dot... Also, I feel like Polka Dot Man wasn't used properly. Like, I thought he was able to create things with his polka dots.
I had never read too much of Polka Dot Man.
I could be wrong
at all. But I feel like, for one, the actor who portrayed Polka Dot Man, a man of many faces in Hollywood.
Yeah.
He has been all over the place. TV, movies, video games, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he did an amazing job.
Yeah, it was great. I just think, like, hating one character, not hating the other is just weird. I love Condiment King, but I don't ever want Condiment King to be serious, though. So that's the thing. So if you were to have him, he would just be like a cameo character. I don't think he should be something super massive. I think Condiment King might be something to show up in like a freaking Blue Beetle Booster Gold movie, which would be like just a stupid one-off character that they're just like, what are you doing, man? Like, something like that. Though he is more of a Batman character, but who knows? But yeah, I do think he is a dumb character, but I would love to see him just as a cameo. Even if it's like, I don't want to see a Comic-Con in one of these universes, but something like that, like a costume party and somebody shows up like that, which would be funny. So
that would
it
be
is
what
cool.
it
is, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, so what is this stuff about the Flash? What do we got going on
So
with that?
we got just a few things from the Flash. For one, over at CCXP, they had the costumes out on display along with some new merch, which you and I both shared.
Mhm.
We got a new logo for the Flash. This shirt, merchandise, poster, whatever you want to call it, because I'm sure they will put it on everything, of like the Flash running, and then you see the silhouette of Supergirl and Batman in it. Of
Yeah.
course, Keaton's Batman. I don't like it.
Well, yeah, the design's not the greatest, but I like that it shows the characters.
I like that it shows the characters, but just because of the, I guess, the pose of which they have the Flash going and the, I guess, placement of Batman, it
Mhm.
just looks weird. Like
Yeah.
you can't tell where his cape starts and where his body begins and all of this other things. It just looks very awkward.
Yeah.
And the
I
only
agree.
thing that really tells you that it's Batman is the horns on the cowl.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah.
Uh, but other than that, the big thing this morning that was really popping off was I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but there is a pretty big scooper that has really started to really rev up in the scooper game this year.
Mhm.
Last year and this year. They're called My Time to Shine. Hello. Somebody, I think it was the DC Syndicate, made a comment saying, "Let me tell you something very important to you all. Don't overreact to test screening results, even if it is extremely positive or negative. These test screening results are not final products. By the way, looks like they screened an older cut, so don't expect much change from the last." And then My Time to Shine said it wasn't an older cut, and that's not how it works. They probably shot that scene with Affleck in case the movie comes out before The Flash, but now that it comes out after, they kept Keaton and removed Affleck.
In Aquaman or
Yeah,
Flash?
in
Oh.
Aquaman. So,
Hmm.
and then Casey Walsh made a comment saying, without spoiling anything, I'll just say they cut a major scene and it appears that Bruce Wayne's scene is no longer necessary. So
Huh.
the Bruce Wayne scene with Aquaman
Uh-huh.
that we had seen, like them kind of, Jason Momoa was like, "Oh shit, this was gonna be a surprise," but and then
Yeah.
posted all over his Instagram and stuff. So I guess they cut that scene.
So it's still Keaton then.
Yeah.
So then what the fuck does that mean for Affleck? This is what he needs to clear up. Like, what the fuck are they gonna do? Because I think going with Keaton over Affleck is a bit like a worse play, in my opinion.
But that's what I mean. Is Aquaman 2 the death of this universe?
I hope so, if anything.
Because is the DCU a reboot, a
Mhm.
soft reboot? We don't know. So it's very confusing in regards to this idea of there not being there not being multiple Batman, but we have seen and heard and have evidence of several Batmen, you know, filming on several different movies. It's very, very confusing. And I think that there's a possibility. We had talked about this before, I guess, years now, and it did recently come up with the possibility of, beforehand, when Hamada wanted Crisis to happen, there was rumors that there was possibly a tease at the end of Flash to get the ball rolling to get Crisis to happen.
Mhm.
And there was a rumor that Affleck and Miller's Flash were not on the same Earth by the end of the Flash movie, but they were somehow able to communicate. And Ben Affleck's Batman was telling Flash, "There's a crisis coming."
Mhm.
I think that is the scene that might have just been wiped,
Hmm.
and so I don't know how exactly they're going to be moving forward with because, like James Gunn said, he's the only one besides Peter Safran that knows what's going on with DC after January of 2023. So I'm just very confused as of what everything is happening, like what's going on.
Yeah, again, I just want to know what's going on with Batman. Also, nothing really came out of CCXP, like, to be honest.
Yeah, nothing really. There was a surprise panel with Blue Beetle. It did there was a mention or a confirmation that one of the lead actresses in Blue Beetle is actually related to Ted Kord. And that's how there's going to be a connection between Jaime, her, and then Ted later on. But yeah, nothing really came out of that. I think James Gunn was busy and he said that he wasn't able to show up, and that's probably why there wasn't more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think we covered it on the podcast before. Maybe if we didn't, James Gunn did say that somebody asked him about Comic-Con, right? And he was like, I'd be shocked if you didn't see something before then.
Yeah, so we know that he is pitching to WB Discovery the new slate in January, or at least early 2023. We assume that we will see that slate in San Diego Comic-Con, and some people have made that assumption as well, and so they verbalized it to him, and they're like, and he said, I would be really surprised if something didn't leak before then.
Yeah.
Because he knows how these things work.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what happens. That's the only thing I'm worried about, man. I just want to see what they're doing with Batman, and that's all I care about. I think it's a worse play to keep Keaton around. I think you should go after Affleck if he's willing. But we'll see. But I do hope it gets cleared up. It just, as long as it doesn't feel rushed, man. We got the burps right now. As long as it doesn't feel rushed, but freaking, we'll see. I don't know if it's something that can be fixed in one movie or across multiple movies, or what happens here. Because if they are going to do a Crisis, do they use that to reboot the whole universe? And if they do they keep the same people? Or do they get a new people's? Because they said they're planning this for 10 years. So, even though he only has a 4-year contract, they're trying to plan it out for 10 years. So, be very interesting to see. Another thing that we might be getting in the future, because the person involved really wants it to happen, is something to do with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, because Margot Robbie really wants it to happen. She's been actually advocating for this for a really long time, way before Gunn took over. But her and Gunn apparently have a really good relationship, and he was apparently writing something for Harley Quinn a while back. Yeah. So I'm curious if this is going to be that, or if she is going to be like, hey, you're in charge now. Can I finally have this happen? And the one thing that I really enjoyed Margot Robbie saying was, they asked her, who do you think would play Poison Ivy? And she was like, I don't think about the actress who should play Poison Ivy. I just think about the characters and the idea of putting them on screen and having this romance. I don't have a certain person in mind to play Poison Ivy, which I think is really good. Yes. Now I'm curious on who they go with, because I don't know. I think it all comes down to, are they doing green skin or not? And from my understanding is James Gunn made a comment recently about how apparently green skin is one of the hardest things to do in movies. And because I think somebody was talking about how Drax is more gray now and he's not as green as he used to be. Yeah. And so they were like, we already have to do it with Gamora. I think it's just, the makeup artist started to change it over time, whatever, something along those lines. So do you think we would get redheaded Ivy? And I'm already preparing myself for the shitstorm of them casting a person of color and doing red hair.
And then all the redheads being like, why are you doing this to us?
So
I could see that happening, or I could see very, very fair skin redhead.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to get an actual pale ass redhead in one of these characters that we constantly have, but I don't know what they would do. I would not be opposed to redheaded Ivy. I like the animated series version. I think is really cool. And especially if we get that Harley suit too, I think that would be kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. Possibility of a Poison Ivy Harley Quinn movie. Again, I think at that point you just do Gotham City Sirens though. Bring in your Catwoman as well at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe that's something they'll do. Who knows? But is that all we got for the main stuff? No, we actually have a new movie that was announced. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. The Dark Knight is headed to the 1920s in Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham, with A Million Little Things actor David Gittali? I don't know how to pronounce that. Starring as Batman. Now, you said this person sucks.
He was in the worst Batman animated movie, which was
his voice.
His voice was okay. This of course Batman. Not the best Batman voice.
The best Batman is no longer with us, but second best is who? I don't really know who the second best. Who's the one that does the Titans show? Yeah, Young Justice.
Oh yeah, Bruce Greenwood. He's my favorite Batman.
Oh, okay. Over Conroy?
I was about to say, I wanted to go ahead and correct myself. That is, below Conroy. I think below that is the Batman in 2004 for me. But Bruce Greenwood, freaking President of the United States in National Treasure. I love his voice as Batman. I think it's great. But this actor, David Guntoli, he was supposed to be playing like a 70s Batman in Soul of the Dragon, because it was like basically like a Bruce Lee movie, and it was a really bad movie. I didn't really like it. There was some corny jokes in there, so unfortunately I have him as Batman in this movie, but I have Jason Marsden as Dick Grayson and young Bruce Wayne, which I actually am really okay with. If you don't know who that is, Eric Matthews' best friend in Boy Meets World. He also played Max Goof in the Goofy movie. And him as Nightwing, I think would work out perfectly.
Yeah, no, he's got a good voice. I love this bat suit, by the way. This 1920s bat suit. I've always been a fan of it. It looks really cool. And I've never read the book, though. So I'm curious. The cover of this book has Batman with a gun. So it's an Elseworld story, everybody. But this does kind of, we had this discussion last week, and I believe there's a comment about it in the upcoming comments. But Batman uses guns. Just throwing that out there. Told you. It's one of the more believable things. He just doesn't use ones that kill. Although, I don't know what that gun is in that story, so he could easily use it to kill people. Because those Elseworld stories go hard sometimes. But I think that is everything. I mean, there is a small tidbit of apparently the Batmobile remains the same in The Flash, but there is a new Batwing.
Yes.
So there was that as well. And I think that, did we find that out because of toys, or how did we find that information out?
Let me actually see. I had just saw the post and I decided to share it, and I was going to look back at it later and I never did.
Yeah.
But looking at it now, it looks like the post has since been deleted, so I can't actually look at it. So
maybe that's wrong. Who knows?
I could possibly see it being a toy that is about to come out, that is probably in solicits or available to pre-order or whatever. So I could see it being a toy thing.
Yeah. I could imagine the original one is kind of hard to make because it's so circular, because it is the bat symbol in a circle, kind of. So they probably wanted to go with a more sleek, easier design to film. So I could see that. But anyways, I think that is everything for news-wise, but we have a whole bunch of comments. So we're going to dive into these right now. Starting off with Total Gaming Unit. Feel sorry for DC Animated. That was the best of DC. I just hope James Gunn can get the movies back online. DC is fucked. DC Comic Books is dragging out. Sorry, storylines. It says storylines, but I mean, it's supposed to be storylines. Now they want to share animated. No, not it. So this person's not happy with the idea of Amazon getting the DC animated stuff.
Which is absolutely wild. Now, I do understand there is an total gaming unit. You may not see it as this way, but there is a big proponent of gatekeeping when it comes to DC animation of like, oh, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited are the best things ever and everything else is non-superior, you know. And I get it. It's something that we grew up with, great storytelling, great cast for the characters and whatnot. But I think it needs to evolve. I think there needs to be another version of an animated series for these characters, because I feel like the advancement of technology for animation has evolved so much, and the animation that has come out of other streaming services has been so good. Look at Netflix and freaking Voltron. Absolutely amazing. You look at Amazon and Invincible. Absolutely amazing. You know? So I think that if you're able to do something with a property that you own, plus make a shit ton of money out of it, do it.
Yeah.
And especially with the characters like DC, you know, I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. I'm going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see if they end up making something like a Justice League Unlimited or a Justice League series.
Yeah.
To see who the new voice cast will eventually become.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see a studio from Japan make something. That's all I want to see. Like I'm talking like Infotable or whatever. Whoever does like Demon Slayer, I want to see them do an animated series. I think that would be great. Whether that be Batman or something else. Actually, animated Superman, I think would be really awesome since he's so overpowered. Like the fights would be crazy.
Yeah.
So I would be down to see that. But yeah, I mean, you know what? With any kind of change, there are going to be people that don't like it, and you know, we hear you. I get it. I don't like what Zdarsky's doing in Batman, and there are people that love it. So. All right, here we go. We got Nathan who says, love your videos. Would like to spread your channel to more comic readers. Could I have your blessing to set marketing cards for the channel at my local comic shop? In parentheses, challengers, which I found this is really interesting because we have some comments under it, which is Moncray, who's like, what the F? Are you serious? I go to challengers too. I was there last week getting some Batman volumes. And then Nathan replies to that, imagine if we passed each other before and never knew. So possible Batman News Weekly listeners in the same area, which I think is kind of cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we did have Alexis also said, I think I went there one time last year when visiting Chicago on break. I liked the atmosphere and the walls had sketches from comic book illustrators. I've been to some, I was actually able to go to, oh my God, there was a famous comic book shop in LA that was
the really small one, right?
It had a comedy store in the back.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but it closed down recently. It was where Nerdist started. It closed down like years ago. But like my friend took me there, and I remember seeing one of the chicks from those like fighting shows and stuff there. Like you know how it's like Bat in the Sun and all those other like fighter ones? I saw one of the chicks there one time. And so like cool. It was a place people like hung out and had like couches and shit. Like you could actually chill there. And I thought it was really awesome. And it had a comedy store in the back. So like they actually did comedy shows. I forget what it's called. Meteor Comics, Asteroid Comics, something along those lines. I could be totally wrong. I'll have to ask my friend that took me. But I was glad I was able to go to that comic shop before it closed because it was awesome. But I don't care. I don't care with people pimping out Batman News Weekly. Totally cool. Don't make the cards look like shit. That's all I'm going to say. If you're going to make cards, like we have our own symbol. If you want to print that out that says Batman News Weekly on it, maybe write where you can find us on the back. Go for it. I think that would be awesome. We're totally down for people pimping out the podcast.
And also, just so it helps us on other platforms and everybody else finding us, don't be afraid to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere that you listen to podcasts.
Yep. Definitely do that. But yeah, go for it. You got our blessing. Next up, we got Eduardo de la Cruz. I hopped off right before Joker War. Can you explain to me who Ghostmaker, Miracle Molly, and Punchline are? What do you think of them? I kind of feel like this is a troll comment.
I feel like it might be, but I will go ahead and answer this question. So, Ghostmaker is Dollar General Batman. He was introduced as the god of solving crimes. He solved 7 crimes in less than 2 pages, and has not been able to do it since.
Yeah. No, didn't he solve like 20 while having a threesome?
But that was technically in the past because it was an annual that was showing like his previous work or whatever. That wasn't like during the Joker War or whatever. I'm pretty sure.
Well,
I'm pretty sure
still
it was a
Ghostmaker
flashback.
though.
So. Yes. Miracle Molly was supposed to be, and I know that she was recently featured in, I say recently, I say within the last like year and a half, featured in Urban Legends. I think they are trying to make her a part of Birds of Prey now. And she is basically the technological Robin Hood of Gotham. Is basically the easiest way to explain her. And then Punchline is supposed to be Joker's new girl that is obsessed with him, but there's some very contradicting things in some books that we're going to be talking about, so I will bring that up later.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Not Ghostmaker. Ghostmaker had no potential. He sucks. He's the worst. I will kill him in my Batman run. But the other characters, Miracle Molly, Punchline, and even the designer, all had amazing potential. So I will give that to Tynion. He just failed to make them amazing.
Yeah.
Miracle Molly, I would have no problem with her being in Birds of Prey. I think she has an amazing design. I think she looks freaking great. And DC did too when she debuted. They gave her like 40 covers.
Yeah.
Which was so crazy. But I think she looks amazing. But he made her super OP where freaking she already knew who Batman was and all this other shit. And I'm just like, you can't do that because then you're just, and this is what I talked about with Clay when I gave my whole speech about Tim Drake. Kind of thought the whole Tim Drake thing, it's kind of a bullshit origin. I know a lot of people love it, but I'm like, if he could solve it and like the way he solved it, I feel like a lot of normal people could put those pieces together as well. And I just don't buy it. And now we're starting to see every villain knows who Batman is. And it's just like, I kind of like the identity thing. Let's not get away from that. But don't make it so easy that everybody understands who he is. I think with some good reworks of those characters, maybe some new origins of them, I think that they could be really great characters. Punchline, her origin is okay. She is obsessed with Joker, and I like what I don't even remember the book, but we just read it recently, maybe even as recent as last week. Somebody said that Punchline is unlike Harley Quinn, who was manipulated by the Joker. Punchline is obsessed with him because she's grown up with him.
Yeah.
And I think that is really cool because we've seen a lot of people get obsessed with like YouTubers or celebrities that they've constantly watched and they're very parasocial. So I like that idea of Punchline. And now maybe if you were to give me her origin of her constantly watching the Joker and like, you know, maybe secretly like keeping all of his like clippings and stuff like that and just like obsessing over him. And then, you know, going into like chemistry or whatever she did to be this kind of thing. I think that's kind of cool. But like the origin that Tynion tried to give her was like Joker found her at college or something like that. And then she killed the dean. And then he was like, oh yeah, show me if you're good enough. And then that's how she kills the dean or some shit in her dorm room or like some random ass shit like that. I'm like, dude, you gotta, if you're creating your own characters, how do you not think out their origins? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like that because I don't even think he wrote the origin for Miracle Molly. I think didn't somebody else do that in like an annual or a one shot?
It was
like,
no, not
because it had horrible art.
It was the thing of like it was something of Gotham or something of Arkham. It was a 12-issue series. Yeah,
I don't know, but those characters had not Ghostmaker. Ghostmaker did not have any potential. He was dead on arrival. He sucks. But I think the other characters Tynion has created had a lot of potential. I will always say Clown Hunter should have died. But
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
100%.
again, they fucked that. So going on to Fede, which I want to say best comment of the week here. So I think because we asked about this, and I think this is really eye-opening and interesting. So regarding the bisexual characters, as a bisexual / pansexual person, I'm always behind more representation because growing up as a kid, I never had any hero that showed me that my sexuality or any sexuality for that other than straight was okay and that could kick ass and be a badass and also gay, for example. From my point of view, the original issue was making all of these heroes straight when they just doesn't make any sense. So now DC realized that almost none of their characters were queer, and let's be real, no one will care to buy the book of a new character just because they're gay, for example. Like you said, Juice, incels and comics gators say that, but I assure you that they're not buying these books, which I totally agree on. So now DC acknowledges their lack of diversity. They have two options, in my opinion. One, they create one of the new queer characters. The problem is that the problem with that is that just because that new character is new and queer doesn't mean that it will be relevant or a compelling character after that hype dies down, which we've seen that fail many a times in comic books. Let's see. Two, they change existing character sexuality, which from my point of view, it isn't that far off. For example, I realized my sexuality when I was 17. That's 17 years of my life. I didn't know exactly who I was. So, for example, in case of Tim Drake, it made so much sense. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea of my queer characters. However, their sexuality can't be everything because they're going to fail. That's my 2 cents. Very interesting. Drew actually had a counterpoint to this in the Discord because we were kind of talking about this as well. Drew's point of view is I've been reading comics for 30 years or so, and Tim Drake has always had a love interest in Stephanie Brown. They both watched each other die. We've seen them mourn each other, and we've seen them like fall back in love. He was like, I don't like that they're just erasing that from existence, like it never happened. Which I think is a fair point. I think that is a fair counterpoint from Drew's perspective. But I also think Fede here is also really interesting. I think the problem with Tim Drake, and I agree with Fede that a lot of people don't get their sexuality, and I can only come from this as a straight person. As someone who is straight, I have never questioned my sexuality. Like, it's never been questioned, and I'm not gay, so I don't know if Fede, like, who is bisexual, felt like, I don't know if I'm straight or not. And also bisexuality, like, I feel like you're still kind of, you like women still, and you like men. You like both. So I feel like that's a lot harder. I think I would want to hear the perspective of somebody who's gay. Like, did they always just feel like, I don't, am I supposed to be straight? Am I not? Like, you know what I mean? I love having those kind of conversations because I've never once questioned my sexuality. But I feel a lot of people say they're like, I didn't know what I was. So that means, I would assume that means you're questioning it, right? I could be wrong. These are the kind of conversations I would love to have. But I think these are both two great comments, in my opinion. I think Drew has a point, and I think Fede has a point here. And I think there are a lot of young readers that do go through sexuality issues and identity issues. And so turning a character, I can see it. But my biggest gripe has always been they turn these characters and then they never do anything with them. But it finally feels like DC is like, oh, we have to do something with them now because before we weren't doing shit. Yeah. That's how I see it. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the whole Tim Drake stuff and everything else.
I can agree just like you on both sides. I think it's very important that there is representation, but I think it's a very fine line to walk across when it comes to the idea of changing somebody's sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just like Fede, somebody could be confused about their identity for several years of their life before they completely stand firm on a certain stance.
Yeah.
That is 100% okay. If you're going to do that, I would like to see that story.
Yes. 100%.
Not just be like, okay, I'm gay.
Yeah. And that's how Tim Drake comes off to me.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem because, like Drew says, it's been 30 years of Tim Drake dating Stephanie Brown. You know what I mean? And so that doesn't mean that somebody can't change. We have heard stories of people hiding their sexuality into their 40s. So it doesn't really matter. But I don't think that they told that story with Tim Drake. I could be wrong. I've been skimming that Tim Drake book that I don't like the art for. I do think somebody like George Jimenez needs to write one of these LGBT books. So it's just beautiful art with hopefully a beautiful story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like they don't give these books a chance. And it's always the goofiest drawings. And I'm like, I just get turned off by the art. And it's unfortunate. But yeah, I'm very, I thought that was an amazing comment. I would love to see more comments like that for people that do this. But I will say at the same time, I think it's a little bit easier to change sexuality. But I, as somebody who is a person of color, I don't want them to change characters' skin colors at this point. Like, it's been too long. I don't want Batman to just Bruce Wayne is black now or, you know, Mexican or something, right? Like, we don't need to do that. Like, the character's established, that's fine. But bring in a new character. Like Duke Thomas, you could have made him an amazing character and you've done nothing with him. Yep. Like, and we saw him grow up, which you don't ever really get to see in comics. And we got to see him grow up. They haven't done enough with him. I feel like there's a lot of writers that want to do stuff with him, but DC is probably like, who cares? Like, we don't want him. Like, and I just don't understand that. Like, they could have done that. And then I don't know if Bluebird, I don't know what her sexuality is. I don't know if she's bi or lesbian. I don't know if she's straight. Or maybe I'm getting her confused with her brother. Is her brother gay? Those stories are so long ago.
I want to say because in Young Justice, she is, I believe, gay.
Okay. Which I'm just getting, because I think there was, but I know that they had family problems in their family.
But in the backup, I'm pretty sure in the comics, the backup, I'm pretty sure her brother is gay. So it may be
maybe they're
switched.
Both gay. Which
might be.
Again, if that's the case, let me know that story. Like, I know that they have a troubled childhood. Maybe write a story that integrates the troubled childhood because they're gay and their family is like strict religious or something like that. Because that happens in our state all the fucking time. So like, I would be very interested to read that story because that is relatable. You know, there are people that have to be closeted. They cannot come out as, you know, whatever their preference is because their family will throw them out. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, no, this is against God and blah, 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 blah. And they will literally throw them out. I know friends that have done that. I know people that have been thrown out of their households because of that. And it's unfortunate. And I would like to see that story in comics. And that's where it becomes relatable. And I think that's also where you can win over the thick-headed, stubborn people that are like, I don't like that they turned my character gay. I don't think you can ever fight against a good story. And the problem is a lot of these stories are not good. And that's what needs to be fixed. So that's my biggest thing. Don't care about sexuality. Don't care about race. I care about the fucking story. And a lot of the stories, when they try to push the agenda, as the incels will say, are usually shit. And that doesn't help. So fix that, DC. Next up, we have Vasan. Vasan, you had a few comments on here. We're going to be picking your best ones. This goes for everybody. If you do multiple comments, we're going to pick your best comment and go from there because we will be here all day if we do every single comment. Vasan says, Batman just used a gun, laser gun in New Genesis, so that Failsafe wouldn't predict him in Failsafe. He also used a gun on Darkseid. Also, in the new previews, we see Failsafe use a gun on Batman, and I think that's totally fair because it just says how Batman thinks he is Darkseid level threat. So Failsafe thinks Batman is a Darkseid level threat is how I read that. So Chip Zdarsky's story is basically Batman with prep time versus Batman. And I think that Failsafe is Batman. Like the HNH sound and using a gun against Batman because Batman is as bad as Darkseid. So again, what I had just said. Also, the super gun is something that Batman uses to be unpredictable. What if his hands were cut off and there literally wasn't any way for him to use the canister? The gum is spitting in the most unexpected, unresourceful technique besides whistling that Batman would disrupt the sound frequency of Kryptonians. Okay, it's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
First of all, I already said this in the first 40 minutes of this podcast. Failsafe doesn't make sense because Batman has already corrected that. If Failsafe is Batman, Batman wouldn't kill. And so he kills him here. Or he gets teleported away or whatever. I just don't think Failsafe makes sense. So you can try to sit here and tell me that Batman is Darkseid and Batman is whatever. But if Batman is Batman, or if Failsafe is Batman, he would have handled it the way Batman would have. And like, I don't know. I feel like he's trying to pull the thing from Final Crisis to be his smoking gun here because Batman used a gun there, right? Which is a fair point, but I just don't think that. First off, this is precedent here. We know Batman treats aliens different than he treats humans. He's killed aliens before. So technically, if Failsafe is Batman and he knows Batman is human, then he wouldn't kill him because he has more respect for the human life. So it just doesn't make sense to me. I know you're trying to put a good thing in. I think that's a good try. It still doesn't work for me. I think Zdarsky is just doing a really bad job. Now for the Batman gum, I went back and looked this up because for some reason, I, in my brain, thought Batman had kryptonite gum in his mouth at all times, like on a tooth or something that he could pop off. Yeah. Like, I went back to verify that because I don't know why I thought that, but I was like, believable, I guess. Like, he probably would be that ridiculous. Turns out he has a pellet of the gum in his cowl. So I guess he's able to move something and take the gum out and put it in his mouth pretty quickly. And he was fighting Superman during that Snyder run when he used it. So you just have to assume that he took it out of his cowl and put it in his mouth and spit it in his face. So your analogy of Batman not having hands wouldn't work here because he still needs his hands to put it in his mouth. Now, if it was in his tooth, like I thought it was, then he wouldn't need it. But unfortunately, your analogy there does not work, Vasan. So back to the drawing board, my guy. Moncray up next says, would a story of Batman accidentally killing be done well, or would it ruin his character? P.S. Riddler and Clock King are a gay couple in Harley Quinn show. This got pointed out a lot, and I completely forgot about it.
Kind of tells how lackluster season 3 kind of was.
Wasn't that season 2? Or was it season 3?
It was season 3, the beginning of season 3.
I haven't finished it.
I haven't finished it either.
Yeah. It could be really good. I just haven't finished it. But Clock King was a clock, though, which was really weird. But it fits with the comedy stuff. Yeah, so I guess there has been a lot of things where, or not a lot of things, but there have been times where Riddler is gay in source material. So there you go. I just never really thought about that because I completely forgot about that issue. But I could see it. Will they pull the trigger on that? Who knows? I feel like they don't care about villains being gay.
Yeah.
You know, they just care about them being bad. So there's that. What else do we got after that? What are your thoughts on Batman killing? Could it be done right?
So I feel like there was a little bit of a discussion about this last episode. Him accidentally killing, I think, this would be the story of Daredevil, because this is what happens at the beginning of Daredevil with Chip Zdarsky.
Yeah.
This whole idea that, you know, just on some off day, Daredevil accidentally throws a baton that he uses and he kills a guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's not great. Then all of the heroes are coming after him and all of this other stuff. It's going to be a better story than what I'm reading now with Failsafe. But I think that I think it would be a compelling story on the side of how does Batman come back from it? Not necessarily how everybody else trusts him afterwards, or like if people believe he actually did it, but the actual inside narration of Batman coming to terms with accidentally killing an individual and knowing that his actions resulted in somebody's death.
Yeah. I think it could work. It just needs to be really good. But
Yes.
I could be wrong here. But wasn't that the premise of Batman and Robin Eternal? Because there's this panel.
I never read Eternal.
Okay, somebody that read Batman and Robin Eternal, please leave this comment. Did not Batman kill somebody, or they at least made you think he killed somebody? I have not went back to read that story, but I remember reading issue 1 or 2, but one of the issue ends with like, I have a dark secret or blah, 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 blah. And it's the family finding out about this dark secret. And there was like somebody called Mother or something like that, or the Mother, that could like brainwash people to do what she wanted. And they brainwashed Batman to kill a family. And I think the family, he essentially did what Joe Chill did to him. And he killed parents and created another Batman. And this Batman, this ninja character, I believe, who I think is called Orphan, if I'm not mistaken, and it's not Cassandra Cain, goes around like killing people or whatever. And his problem is because Batman killed his parents. And so that could be the thing, but I don't know if that ever got resolved. Like if it was like, it actually wasn't you, Batman, it was all a dream or some shit. Or if Batman genuinely killed somebody, because that was main continuity. And if that's the case, I think that would be stupid. So, especially with all the training Batman's done, he shouldn't be easily manipulated like that. So,
yeah.
So yeah, you would have me on the fence. You would have to tell a really good fucking story for me to believe that. But I would lean more, 9 out of 10 times, I would say no. I would say it would be a bad story. Because it's one of those things, right? Like, everybody automatically thinks it's a good story if you do the one thing the character should never do. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's like, oh my God, that'll be so compelling. Like, I want to see that story. I want to see, Superman rip the head off of the president or something like that. Like, it'd be so cool. And it's just like, oh, but he's the American Boy Scout. It's like, no, it would be cool if you killed the president. Like, it's like, bro, okay, whatever. Like, not every story, just because you do something outlandish the character wouldn't do, makes it good, So Everybody thought Punisher Batman was going to be awesome, and that kind of sucked. What was his name? Batman. What was it? Batman Dan?
Oh,
Batman.
No.
Batman Punisher.
Oh shit! What was his name?
The Hell Batman. I don't know. He just had a bajillion guns. But I know people are like, "Oh my God, he's so awesome," and he still sucked. Oh my God, what the fuck is his name? Anyways, you figure that out, and I'll move on to the next one. Alexis Barrera says, "I think Amazon has done the best adapting of Image comics into shows. Just look at what they did with The Boys and Invincible. Do you think it would be best for them to adopt Saga, Spawn, I Hate Fairyland, or something else from Image?"
Well, for one, I will go ahead and say The Boys is not an Image comic. It was a previously owned by DC, but then owned by Dynamite now. So,
oh, was it Dark Horse, or what? What was it? Vertigo?
No.
The Boys owned by DC at one point?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. If we're just talking about Image comics, something like that, I would actually like to see an animated version of The Walking Dead. Like, actually play out like the comic book does. Same characters, same everything, because the comic book deviated, or the show deviated so much from the actual comic that I think doing an animated version would be worth it.
The Grim Knight.
Stupid name too.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Yeah, that's lame. Yeah, that was lame. But yeah, I would want to see The Walking Dead. Do you have a particular other story Image should do?
As far as Image comics, I would really recently, Kyle Higgins, Ryan Parrott, and Matthew Groom have created a universe called Radiant Black. I would really love for them to do an animated series of that. They actually, Image and the writers of them scrounged up some money, and they actually did an animated short for a preview of their of one of their issues that was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
and they had Will Friedle voice Radiant Black.
Oh, nice.
So it sounded great and it looked amazing. I'll have to share it in Discord this weekend. But I would love for them to do Radiant Black. I mean, I've never seen it, but I feel like Spawn would actually be very successful nowadays. You know,
especially if you went like the anime route with it, like with that kind of design where it's like all flowy and crazy.
Yeah,
I think that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, I'd still go Walking Dead. All right, we got 2 more comments. We got Clay in the Nolan verse. What would have happened if Bane came to Gotham at the same time the Joker was causing chaos in the Dark Knight? Would he team up with the Joker, Batman, or would Joker and Batman team up against Bane?
This was an odd question that I saw earlier. I wanted to double check to see if there was anything that would really stump me prior. So I went ahead and looked at this beforehand. I don't remember enough of Rises to understand the alignment between the 3 of them in regards to, like, other than Bane's connection to Ra's. I don't really understand. Like, again, I'd have to watch the movie again. It's been so long. Like, I feel like Bane would be like, this dude's fucking crazy. We're out of here. We'll control another city. Peace out. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if there would be a really big push to be like, oh, all 3 of us are going to control Gotham, you know?
Yeah. I just don't think it would be a good movie. It'd be too much. But Joker was supposed to be in part 3. So, you know, I don't know if he would have been in jail or what the case would have been, or in Arkham probably. So he was supposed to be in part 3. I'm curious on how that would have played out. I wonder if anybody's ever asked Nolan that. Like, what was supposed to be his part in the 3rd movie? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there would be. I would have hated a Batman Joker team up after what we saw in The Dark Knight. I would have hated them teaming up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think it would have been better if Batman just had to figure out how to solve both, you know, 2 crazy villains at once. Like, what am I going to do, you know? And maybe that's when you introduce Robin. He needs teams, or Catwoman could have helped, you know?
Yeah.
She was in it. So I just think it would have been too much, though. So probably for the best that didn't happen. Last comment of the podcast, Jason Todd. Which side villain do you think can be the main baddie of an arc like Joker, Bane, Riddler are? My pick is Mad Hatter because they rarely ever have him do much, but it was interesting to see a whole volume dedicated to his antics. It would be interesting. So yeah, what side villain, so B, C list maybe, that you think could hold down an arc?
I think
Hatter's a good shout though.
Hatter is a good shout. I don't think he's C. I think he's lower. But that one story really got me. I think Killer Moth would be a really fun and possibly like really cool story to tell for at least one arc. You know, whether that be a 3-issue arc or a 6-issue arc, that's entirely up to the writer. But I think Killer Moth would be a good choice. That's something that I wanted to update everybody on. I am on episode 10 of Batman Unburied on Spotify.
Oh, nice.
I started to listen to it. And a character that they are using in that book, we have not seen or heard of in a very long time, Hugo Strange.
Oh, nice. All right, that makes sense. Isn't it like in a laboratory or a morgue or something like that setting?
Well, that's the thing also. That was all a dream.
Oh?
Yeah.
Right.
So, along with...
Spoilers. Sorry.
Yeah, minor spoilers. Along with Tetch, Mad Hatter, there is like the inclusion of like Poison Ivy and Hugo Strange and they're all kind of concocting this thing that basically they capture Bruce Wayne, and then like Bruce Wayne has like a mind key, which is what he uses for his um security in Wayne Tower and Wayne Security. And while they were looking for this mind key, they just happened to fall upon the fact that he is Batman.
All right.
Yeah. It's weird. I will say.
It sounds weird.
It's not my favorite Batman story, but I will say this. The sound design of the actual production, absolutely amazing. The guy who is actually Batman and Bruce Wayne, unfortunately, is attempting to do his best Christian Bale Batman.
Ooh.
So very gravelly, very like
yeah.
Not the
best. What's his name from Watchmen, right? Or no, it's the guy from Black Panther.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was good. I feel like isn't he doing something? He's doing something else in Marvel, right? The guy from Watchmen. I forget his name. He has a unique name. I forget. He's like a new character, isn't he? He's like Superman or some shit.
What?
Or I don't know. He's like maybe he's not Superman. He's Animal Man or some random bullshit.
Oh, you're talking about the guy from the Watchmen TV series, the guy from Aquaman.
Yeah.
He's gonna be playing Wonder Man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
In Marvel. Yeah.
And he's in both. Gangster. I hope because he's in Aquaman 2, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure he's gonna be in Aquaman 2. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. And he's a great actor. But yeah, a Christian Bale voice. That's kind of a turn off right there to listen to.
It's rough.
But that's cool. I think that was everything we got. Unless I just missed. I'm not gonna lie to you. I blanked on that last comment. I completely forgot because I closed out the freaking thing, so I didn't know
what B or C list.
Oh, there you go. Dollmaker. I know that Finch or no Daniels is the one that drew that book, right?
Yeah.
In Detective. Had a run with him, but I think you could go a little bit creepy and more sinister with Dollmaker and do some more shit and have like a detective story involved somehow. I think Dollmaker would be really good. And I don't know. I feel like do you consider Clayface A tier?
I was thinking Clayface when I first was gonna answer the question. But for one, he has kind of played the fence of like hero and villain. So I was just like, I won't add him in that category. But I do think a lot of people consider him to be A tier.
Yeah.
Because he is it's really sad. It's again the whole idea of like what's gonna make their way into live action with Batman being the way they are in movies. None of the supernatural stuff really makes it. So they forget about Clayface. But when it comes to the actual conversation of villains, Clayface is usually at the top.
Yeah. As much as I love him, I would say he's probably B tier. Because I don't think there's a story where Clayface is the main villain that you're just like, that's a fucking amazing story.
True, because he's usually the MacGuffin.
Yeah. He's usually like, he's used to do the bait and switch.
Yep.
All the time. And it's overused. So, I don't know. I love Clayface. I want to see him in movies. I want to see more of him. But you can just look to the Harley Quinn show and see how they treat him. You know, he is the goofy character. And that kind of sucks. But yeah, I would love Clayface, but I don't think he's he's not A-list in my opinion. But anyways, that is all we have for questions and comments, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to move on to the final part of the podcast, which is comic books. Now, of course, we talked about the main book that we did all week, or we've been waiting to talk about for so long at the start of this podcast. But we do have a few more books to talk about. And two of them I do not give a shit about. And they both involve the Joker. Did you even read or care about Deadly Duo?
So I did read Deadly Duo. I will say this book, I do not like it at all.
I'm cool with dropping it. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, I'm okay with dropping it as well. The problem that this book has, again, we keep saying it with Mark Waid. We're kind of saying it with Chip Zdarsky, but this book is definitely a product of Silvestri's time. He is wanting to write a story that takes place during the time that he was probably reading comics.
Yeah.
Because one thing that rubbed me the wrong way, which was actually a conversation that we were having in the Discord with Ethan when he did not like lesbian Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is in a relationship with Joker in this book, and it just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, to play devil's advocate, I don't mind telling old stories between Harley and Joker, because I still think a lot of it wasn't explored. It's kind of like everybody always just goes over the obsession, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's still stories you can tell between Harley and Joker. Like, what you don't see a lot is Harley trying to be good while she was with Joker. You don't see a lot of that. And what would those consequences be if he found out, And I don't know, I think there are stories to tell there, but at the same time, just to go back to Harley to be Harley of the Joker time, I don't know. You have to have a good story for me to care about that, because it has been pretty solidified that she is more of an anti-hero now, and she is with Poison Ivy. And that's kind of what everybody sees. I think that is one of the most accepted couples out of a lot of comic book couples, to be honest. Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn are a symbol, and that's what people enjoy. And it's popular enough to be on shows and books and all this stuff. So it is really weird to kind of separate that. It's kind of like, to make the straight equivalent, it is Bad Cat. People don't want to see Bad Cat split up. Some people do, but a majority of people don't, to the point where they will stop buying books or they will talk shit about the writers or whatever. And that's not just me. It's happening a lot on Twitter and in Reddit and whatever. They just don't like what's happening, what Howard's doing, and all this other stuff. So yeah, so I kind of feel like that's how it's going to be. But yeah, this book, I just can't get into it because I don't like the art. I'm not a fan of it.
The art is really, really rough. And just the storytelling of this book, the issue that I have is they're bringing Joker into the Batcave. Nobody has their mask on unless they're right in front of Joker. And if they're not right in front of Joker, they have this silly, stupid looking mask that has zippers on the eyes and headphones to where he can't hear or see anything that's going on in the Batcave.
Yeah.
It's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the idea of the book ultimately ends with there is a mystery character that we have seen teased in the first issue, then talking to Harley in this issue, and is talking to Batman at the end of this issue. And he was the one, or they are the one, that was really wanting Joker to kind of cause mayhem. And they know where Jim Gordon is. And they have two random citizens tied up in chains with blades, saws underneath them. And the guy was like, oh, by the way, I was going to have Joker decide who to kill. Here's all the evidence over just who they are as individuals. And he was going to choose. But since he can't choose, I guess I will. And so Batman's like, no, wait, I'll choose who lives and who dies. And I just think that's stupid.
Yeah. Although I won't lie, I've always wanted some stories like that where Batman has to make a choice. And he could try to save them both, but I wouldn't mind one of those characters dying every once in a while.
But see, again, if somebody actually dies, then I'll be like, oh shit. Batman then caused that person's death. But if it comes out to what I will assume is, oh, I've made my decision, no one dies, and he throws batarangs and saves them both and does the very stereotypical thing, it's kind of eye rolling sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I say like I think he has to make the choice every once in a while because. So it's funny, Ethan. If you're listening to this podcast, this is actually really good because we were having the discussion about the Batman. The Ponderer is a huge proponent for the Batman, loves it, so he doesn't really enjoy that we don't like it. But we had the discussion on the podcast before about the idea of Thomas Wayne being a bad person, and Ethan is like, he's not a bad person. He made a mistake, which is a fair statement. But somebody ended up dying because of his decision. And I say that at the end of the day, if it wasn't for Thomas Wayne going to a mob boss, somebody would still be alive. And so he takes some part of the blame. I would say that would be probably the same situation here, right? Like if Batman chooses one to live and one to die, part of that's on his hands. But do we really consider Batman's hands to be bloodiless?
No, because there's always the discussion and the debate on if Batman's explosions, whether it be due to some C4 that he has on a Batarang or anything else, saves more than let's just say this. If Batman wasn't able to save everybody on a bridge that was falling into the ocean, can you say Batman killed those people?
Yeah, I think that is the dilemma, right? Like
that's the dilemma. You can't save everybody, but you don't necessarily kill anybody.
Yeah,
but technically,
I don't know what the test is called, but it's where they have like people do. There's 4 people on the train track, but your girlfriend's on the left train track. Like, do you kill your girlfriend and save 4 lives, or do you kill 4 lives to save your girlfriend or whatever, right?
Yeah,
like it's that thing. Or no, it's I think sometimes they do it with the baby versus a grandma or something like that, or they do it with like 4 lives and a baby. Like it's like these people got to live their lives, that baby has no chance. Like what do you pick? And so it's that kind of situation, right? And I think that adds to the humanity of Batman though. So yeah, I think if he's attempting to save somebody and they die, that's not on him. You know what I mean? And like, I do think it gets a little dicey when you do say like, oh, Batman threw a Batarang, it exploded and some people died. If he didn't throw that Batarang properly, then that's kind of on him. You know what I mean? That's what I'll say. But yeah, it is a dilemma, and it always goes down. You could have that about any hero, right? Like, if Superman saves a building, but like, and he saves it from falling, but one random boulder falls off on the side and crushes somebody, is he a bad guy for that? Like, he tried to save the whole building, but somebody wasn't fucking watching where they were going. So it's just like, it's one of those situations, and I think that's kind of what you need, though, right? Because a lot of these superheroes are breaking the laws and stuff. So you're going to have those sticklers that are like, you're a vigilante and you're breaking the law and you don't do anything that's good because you're a criminal. And it's just like, well, yeah, well, the people that are supposed to be upholding the laws are also criminals. So what the fuck do you want me to do? Like, I'm saving way more lives than they are while they're getting paid off by the mob. You know what I mean? So that's always the moral dilemma. And I think that's what makes these characters interesting, right? So you're going to kind of always have that. But I don't mind Batman being put in tough situations like that where he has to make a decision, because it's another one of those things as, could you do that? Like, that's the question, right? Like, could I be the one to step up and be like, I'll pick who dies? I mean, I really don't want to be it, but if I hate you, and I'm just like, I'll pick, let me pick. You know, that would be fucked up. And so it's just like one of those things where I think you question your humanity, and I like that. I just don't like this book.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to. And it could be better. And I'm just tired of Joker. And so it doesn't help the next book that we have to talk about. The Joker, I don't even know what the title, The Man That Can Never Laugh Again or some shit like that. Because I just don't care.
The title of it is, I have it up already.
The Man Who Stopped Laughing.
Yeah, The Man Who Stopped Laughing.
By Rosenberg. I'm never going to get that right.
So Matthew Rosenberg, this is issue number 3. Now, I was digging the first 2 of this issue, or of this title. This one, it did kind of fall a little bit towards the negative for me here.
Okay.
We do have, of course, the conclusion, not conclusion, of the Jason Todd Joker fight here.
Mm-hmm.
And we have like Joker is clearly this, because remember, there's two.
Yeah.
This Joker that is all scarred up, shot in the head, and whatnot, is clearly like, hey, I can't just go walking around everywhere. I need help.
Yeah.
So he goes to a surgeon and basically has a face transplant like thing, surgery, just in a freaking broom closet, it looks like. And there's a really scary visual of like his whole face getting ripped off at one point, which is absolutely insane. But near the end, you see him just walking away. We haven't seen his new face yet. So I'm going to assume this is not the Joker.
Yeah, I hope it's not Hush. You know?
I hope it's not Hush either, but just for the fact that, like, you can't tell me that Rosenberg was like, hey, by the way, I'm going to tell a story about two different Jokers, but the real Joker, I'm going to change the way he looks forever.
That would suck. I hope he's not doing that.
Well, just the idea of like, because at one point I thought, because you do get a little bit of the other Joker in this story as well. And this is where I meant there was a little bit of inconsistency with Punchline.
Yeah.
Because she was like all over Joker and she is obsessed with them. And here she's just like, oh, you're old. You're the old stuff. I'm the new stuff. Like we got things under control. We don't need a clown anymore. I'm just like, that's not your MO. Like the whole point of you was to be his side piece, and not in a disgusting, like freaking
sexual kind of way.
Not sexual kind of way, but just the way that Tynan wrote the dynamic.
Yeah.
We actually enjoyed that. And again, I'm not saying that she can't have like an eye-opening experience and be like, oh, maybe Harley was right about this kind of thing and I can be even better than Joker. But again, I never read the backup story, so I don't know if she had that revelation, Yeah. If anybody did, please let me know.
You talking about the backup story to this?
The backup story to Punchline. Back in like Detective or whatever. Like for Punchline's story to progress in that kind of way.
If that story, I think that was when she was like in jail and getting like a following on social media. So I don't really remember any of that. Yeah. I was skimming it. I wasn't really paying attention to it.
Yeah. So I just thought there was a little bit of inconsistency there, but like I from this issue 3, I don't really know where Rosenberg is going here.
Yeah.
So I can't say whether I am more positive on it now with there being no real direction.
Yeah, I feel like the last issue kind of already made me want to jump off the story because Harley Quinn flat out said that the second Joker isn't the Joker. So she was like, you're not the Joker. Like, I know how he is. And I'm like, damn, if Harley was anybody, I would believe Harley would know who the Joker is. Now, and the interesting thing, it's not like King or somebody else that makes you curious about what happens next. I just don't care now. Like, it's not something appealing up. Like, there's nothing about this second Joker that I care about. And if you're just relying on me being like, who's this second Joker? It's not strong enough. And I need something to care about. And I don't think Rosenberg has done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that kind of sucks. And yeah, I just don't really care about this book. We can kind of keep reading it to see where this goes. I'd be interested to see his new face, but yeah, I just don't care.
I am skimming the back of this book. Joker is split in two.
Yeah, so I don't know what's happening in these backups either, but there is a femdom fetish happening because I want to say in every backup of this series, there has been a girl holding Joker by the neck off of his feet. She's a very a
Yeah.
femdom thing that people love. And they're just like, oh, yeah, like, this girl's beating me up. I like it. So that's happening in all these books. Because I think it was Power Girl previously. And then I don't know if there was another one prior to that. I don't care about this book. I'm Jokered out. I want Joker to be put in a vault and we don't hear about him for 5 years. You know what I mean? And it's funny because like DC constantly talks about like, you know, maybe they don't constantly talk about it and I'm just putting words in their mouth. But, you know, you hear that like, oh, only the Batman title sells, only the Joker title sells. So we got to make more of those. It's because you don't do anything else. Like, you don't give me a reason not to, like, you could still make money by reprinting the old books with new covers. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to buy those. Maybe add a new story every once in a while. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't hurt to add a new, like, 6 pages to a hardcover book. You're not going to notice that. Yeah. And so I don't know. I wish they would stop with the Joker, make him disappear for a while. Because, yeah, he needs to go away. And I say that if I ever got to write Batman, I'd probably write a Joker story myself. Because at the end of the day, it's still one of those things where it's the Joker. And you want to write about it, but it just sucks as a reader when that's all you get. You know what I mean? I can understand it from the writer's perspective, but there's so many great characters. Like, why can't you do these stories with somebody else? Which, by the way, I've been pimping out this series for the last couple of weeks. But, dude, if you have a chance, if you get these books, maybe you find them on sale or maybe you find them at a discount bookstore. The Batman Black and White series, I don't know why we stopped covering it or never gave it a chance because it's a bunch of short stories and we're just like, meh. There's some really good stories in there. But also
the newer Black and White stuff?
I'm reading all of it. So I've downloaded all I could. Like, okay. So I guess I got everything, but I think I'm reading the older stuff right now. And some of the older stuff is pretty good. And some of the stories are kind of fucked up too. I talked about this in the Discord, but Dan Didio, remember that guy? He wrote a Batman Black and White story that was drawn by, I forgot who the artist is, but it's like one of those realistic kind of artists. And like, so it looks really good. It's not Alex Ross. It's another good person. The story is about Man-Bat, and Batman is like chasing Man-Bat around the city because there's all these like, I guess, stories about him. And he catches him in the home where it's this guy, he's on the ground and Man-Bat looks like he's going to like kill him or whatever. And Batman's like, stop. And there's like these 2 kids in the room. And turns out that Man-Bat is like, Batman saves the dude's life. And it turns out that it's Langstrom's kids. So I don't know if Langstrom's ever had kids before in the story or any of the Man-Bat stories, but he has kids apparently. Okay. And I guess Langstrom's kids are in protective custody or something like that. And Batman's all like, what are you trying to do to your kids? And like, why are you beating up this man? Turns out the man has photographs of a lot of children. So kind of putting out there that he's a pedo. And what Batman ends up doing is he saves the kids and he's all like, I don't have time for scum like you. And he throws the guy down and he lets Langstrom take him away and basically kill him. And he tells the kids like, you're going to be safe from now on. He's like, I got you. And then he just takes them to be, I guess, with the police or something like that. I'm like, Batman just let somebody die. And granted, I think pedos are terrible fucking people, but I'm like, that was very out of character for Batman. So like, you know, I'm surprised, you know, it is Dan Didio. I'm surprised the kids didn't die. We know he totally told Tom King, he's like, hey, if you want to kill that little girl at the end of Superman, you can totally do it. So pretty crazy shit. But there's some really good stories in there, man. And the thing is, I read like a story that I feel like the Black and White stories, they kind of just let the artist and writer do whatever they want. Because they're going to be short stories. They're probably not main continuity things. But, dude, there was this one story that somebody wrote it in the way of a silent film. And it's called Oh Silent Night or some shit like that. And it's about this character that is a knight that kills people in parks and stuff like that. And I think he kills parents. And it's the Batman from the new Cape Crusader, like the one with those weird cow ears that I don't really like. Yeah. It's that style. And he chases this holy knight through the park. And the reason why the holy knight ends up doing this is because his parents were killed when he was young. And he was like, I don't want anybody else to be able to have parents. Like, they need to suffer like I did. He was like, you would never know that, Batman. and Batman would know it the most. And I was like, that's a fucking great story. And it's written and drawn like a silent film, which looks fucking great. So Batman Black and White, highly, highly suggest it. I'm reading a lot of old Batman because new Batman kind of sucks right now. So highly suggest that if you guys are looking to read some shit. Clay was talking about how he just got a huge discount on, the
DC Universe Infinite app. I went ahead and did the Black Friday deal, which is usually around $75. I got it for $30. Got it for the whole year. So I'm going to be utilizing that next year a whole lot. I started using it just here recently. I'm doing some research for something. Not sure if I'm
no, let's not talk about that yet until we're ready to talk about it. But maybe 2023 might have some interesting shit for this channel. So just saying. So if you guys are, strapped for cash but want to read a bunch of comic books, that's probably a really good deal. That's not a sponsor from us. I'm just letting you know how you can read a bunch of comics that we suggest. But let's move on to the final book of this week, and that is Gotham City Year 1, number 3.
Final book? We still got 2 more.
What? What else did you read?
Sword of Azrael.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Wait, what's the other one?
Well, Gotham Year 1 and then Sword of Azrael. So
okay. I thought you were talking on top of Gotham. I forgot Sword of. Let's jump to Sword of Azrael then, because I don't know about you, but which, by the way, I don't think you finished the list yet. I need that because we're getting kind of close.
We are.
I'm pretty sure this might be making top 10. I don't know about you.
It might be. It might be. This book was absolutely great.
Yeah.
We felt that Ram V created a really cool character back in Catwoman and didn't really do anything with him other than kill a possible love interest for Catwoman in the middle of Batcat. But
see, he did it right. Teenie Howard can learn a thing or two.
This was awesome. Dude, the panel where freaking you just see freaking Valley.
Oh, Valley.
He was like Azrael, and then you just see freaking Jean Paul standing there with the shadow on his face and the blue eyes. Fucking awesome. This book is so fucking anime.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, there's this one panel, which, I mean, the app doesn't show me exactly the page, but what's happening is we see the new creation, the girl that they kidnapped that we saw throughout the story has been molded into basically a demon type knight character. And she is going to bring the Templars back to prominence. And Valley has captured John Paul, and he's just all like, I got my name from your father. And John Paul's like, you know my father? And he's like, yep, your father was the one that trained me and did all this and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I thought you were like the new coming. I thought you were the great Azrael, and I heard so much about you. But now I know that you're just pathetic. He was like, I sent you the girl to rise up, to make her great again. I hate to say it that way, but you know what I mean? Like, to make her the best. And you let her kill a bunch of monks and go off with the Templars. Like, you're pathetic. And like, he starts like whipping him and shit. And which the visuals of Valley whipping his sins away, kind of like doing that is so crazy. Like, that is awesome. Great visuals. And this is all happening in a church. And so Valley starts beating the shit out of John Paul, and he's telling him all of these things. And he's just like, you're not good enough. In between that, we see a mother box, and that the mother box is calling. And it reminded me of the Snyder Cut, to be honest. I thought it was something along those lines. I was like, oh shit, Zack Snyder's going to show up in this book. I'm like, hey, what's up guys? Let me direct something. But we have John Paul getting his ass beat by Valley. And he's like, I'm here to put an end to you. And while he's doing this monologue, Valley finally like awakens as Azrael. Like, he's like, you know what? I am not like, I thought Azrael was always the bad person because I'm innocent and like, I just know he's the one that makes me do bad things. But in reality, I'm not a good person. And like, I'm just blaming it on Azrael, and me and Azrael are one. And that's when you get his like Super Saiyan moment, and he knocks the fuck out of Valley. And there's just this amazing super anime panels of like super kick to the face, grabs his arm, super punch. You see this like super close up of Valley's face just being like molded into a batarang. Looks like it's just like a boomerang, I should say, where it's getting smashed. And then there's just blood, and it looks like he's like getting thrown across a floor because he got hit so hard. And Valley's just there. And then we cut to the fallen angel, and it's just like he's talking to the fallen angel, which that's a representation of Azrael, obviously. Yeah. And he's starting to cry, and this is when he's doing the monologue, and we see the Valley's like, oh, like, who are you, Azrael? And he's like, yes. And that's when we see that badass painting. But visually to Valley, Azrael looks like a fallen angel with the wings and the eyes and all that kind of stuff, which is awesome, an awesome depiction. And he was like, Azrael? And he was like, yes, I always was. And I'm just like, oh, shit. And so, like, that was pretty crazy. And then he was like, and then it goes into this final ending. He was like, I'm going to put you away. Like, you're not going to be around here. You shouldn't be alive anymore. But there's something else we got to do, and we got to correct a wrong. Are you willing to do that with me, brother? And so the Valleys are probably going to go kill the Templars, which
it's going to be a bloody fucking issue, dude.
Yeah, and I think it's the last issue too, if I'm not mistaken. This series has been a breath of fresh air, and it's fucking great. And I'm hoping, along with Blue Beetle, because the first issue of Blue Beetle was really cool, I'm hoping this is the new thing, because we have mentioned on this podcast a million times, just get good writers to take some of these other characters and do miniseries and just release those as trades. And hopefully that's the way you do it. They don't need to have 25 issues of a story. We're seeing that with Catwoman. It fucking sucks. Give me 6 issues of Catwoman at a time. That's it. Arcs, just like that. Same thing. I mean, Nightwing's doing pretty good right now, in my opinion, except for that nymph, issue or whatever, the imp. But for the most part, like, I think this is the way to go, and this has been fucking great. It's not 100% anime, but it has that vibe, and I think it works. So, like, if somebody wanted to get into comics that liked anime, I'd be like, you should read Azrael. It's a really good book. You might like it. And like, I would love to see more like this. I forget the writer, Dan Waters, I think is writing this, if I'm not mistaken. Dan Waters. Great fucking story. Like, I love this series, and I cannot wait for the finale of it. I will probably buy this in a trade. I hope it comes in hardcover, which would be awesome, but it'll probably be paperback, which sucks. Anyways, let's move on to the final book of the week, unless I missed something else. We're not covering Poison Ivy, which, by the way, I've been skimming Poison Ivy every once in a while, and the art in it's kind of cool. Like, I don't know if you've been paying attention to it at all. The story's
not past like issue 3, no.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the art. I haven't been reading it, but it's interesting the way they give Poison Ivy like her own villains and stuff. Like, and we don't really see too much of that from other villains. Yeah. But it seems like they really, really are pushing for, like, obviously Harley and Ivy to be more anti-heroes or good people. But yeah, she's constantly fighting some new crazy characters. But that comes out if you guys are interested in Poison Ivy. But let's move on to the final book, which is Tom King's Gotham City Year 1. And what did you think of this book? Like, I already want to jump to the ending because I was like, oh shit. But
so I will say this. This is, I'm not gonna say it's hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
But I am a new father to a girl.
Oh, yes. Different perspectives here. Okay.
And my wife is sitting down with me every night watching the Casey Anthony interview docuseries on Peacock. That is fairly new. So unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of, spoiler alert for the end of this book, I'm seeing a lot of talk about dead children.
Yeah.
So it's a little much for this week. I will admit. I had to like kind of sit down and play a game to get my mind off of it. But man, This was a rough issue.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of like bad writing, but heavy topics and the like. We had heard that this book was going to be more about the dirty side of Gotham
Mm-hmm.
and like how the Waynes are involved and all of these different things. And this is a dirty side of Gotham.
Yeah.
This is a sad story. I don't see there being a happy ending to whatever this story is going to be. And that's not usually King's MO,
Yeah.
is the happy ending. But to have this on what, issue 3 out of 12, right? Or is
Yeah.
it a 6?
Well, this is usually around the area where you get that moment where you're just like, oh, what the fuck? Like, so it's still fitting his pattern, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think a lot of people will get to issue 3 on a lot of series and kind of jump off. I mean, that just happened with Joker, right? Like, we were just kind of like, meh, don't care.
Yeah.
So I think King, like, you know, strategically plans for the 3rd issue to be like a banger, which this one was. So, you know, to kind of summarize a lot of the story, we see, we get like a pass. We get a lot of flashbacks when it comes to King for sure. He loves this in storytelling, but we get some flashbacks of early Slam Bradley Jr. And then we end up getting, I forget the mom's name, the Wayne mom. Like the mother of this baby. But she shows up to Slam's office and she's all like, I heard about everything that happened because we know in the last issue he punched out you know, Mr. Wayne, and there's gonna be a lot of like problems. He assumes there's gonna be a lot of problems. There's probably gonna be some heat on him or whatever. She's like, I heard about that, what happened? And they kind of allude to Mr. Wayne going after Mrs. Wayne and possibly, you know, beating her up a little bit because he's that kind of guy. And she was like, yeah, I heard about it. I felt it after he came home. You know what I mean? Something along those lines. And she starts talking about how she's like, I know my daughter's dead. I can just feel it. It's mother's intuition. And he's like, oh, well, we don't know that. We can actually, she's like, I know, Sam, I know. And I want you to put an end to this story. I'm going to pay you X amount of money. I'm going to leave it on the table. And if you want to accept it, you can accept it. But I want you to finish this story because I need to know. And so
her exact words were, oh shit, what was it? It was, I would like to hire you. I have money, not all. But she says, as such, you can and will find these people, and we shall bring them to whatever justice is currently available.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like she doesn't have a problem with killing people. So, which will be very interesting. And he, you know, we go through this moment of him contemplating where he just stares at the money. He's like, do I want to do this? And he kind of says, I would have done it for free. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he starts using the money to find out like information.
And I thought that was very, very interesting because his biggest lead is the woman that had jumped off the roof and done all that stuff. And so he tries to look for her. He goes to all these bars, all of these like almost like risque brothel type places, and he is using the cash. And he's like, and he reiterates, I would have done it for free, but the Wayne money really helped.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and so I think that's really cool. And he starts going to all these places, ends up going to like a, what do they call them? Tarot card reader kind of people.
Fortune teller.
Fortune tellers. There you go. And she's kind of like saying some stuff, and it leads him to a house. And, you know, this person opens the door and he's all like, what do you want? He's all like, hey, I'm looking for some information. And he hears crying, and this sets him off because he thinks this is where the Wayne baby is. So he breaks down the door, knocking this guy over. This guy gets a shotgun, tries to shoot Sam. And like he's like jumping over, and then he ends up knocking the guy down and knocking him out. He beats the shit out of him. And he's like, all right, I'm here to get the baby. And he goes in there, totally different baby. And he's like,
so my first reaction when he heard the baby and I heard reading the inner dialogue, my first thought was, it's going to be their baby. It's not going to be
The guy that answered the doors, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not going to be the Wayne baby.
Yeah.
And when you clearly see it's not theirs, he even is like, ah, shit. Like, what did I do? I just beat the shit out of somebody for breaking into their house. Like, that's basically what I did.
Yeah.
And so you see him at the very end. He's like, I saw a place at the outside the window from upstairs, and I decided to grab a shovel.
Well, no, what he says is he after what just happened, he was like, I thought I got it all wrong. Oh, that's what I thought until I spied the yard out in the window.
Yeah.
So he sees this and he goes outside and there's a shovel and he's like, there was a shovel by the side of the fence. I went to the spot I had seen from upstairs, a few square feet of brown dirt in this far west corner of the lawn where everything else was well-tended green grass. So essentially moved around. It didn't match. It looks really out of place, right? And he digs it up. And when he digs it up, there is a very little blanket wrapped up with an owl on it. And so again, the owl symbol still around. And it just says, you see him like on his knees with his hands on the ground looking at this, what we assume is the Wayne baby in there, because we don't see the baby's face or anything like that. And it just says, a mother knows. And I'm like, fucking great dialogue for that. Like,
it's so rough. And I love how this story opens and closes. It bookends with the flashback of him like not really cooperating with the dirtiness of Gotham PD. When he was a detective, because the way this book fucking opens, dude, oh my god, we didn't talk about it. So this dude he's holding a gun to this kid's hand against the table. He's like, oh, this is a lie detector test. If you tell a lie, you know, there's magic lie detector bullets that come out. And the kid says something and he shoots him. And like it's all bloody and gruesome. He's like, "Oh shit! Would you look at that? I didn't even know this gun was loaded. That was a mistake." And like he just thinks it's all fucking funny or whatever. Bradley hasn't like fucking wants nothing of it. It starts beating the shit out of basically the entire fucking department. Like holy shit! Like this is a pure Batman moment here, and it bookends because it's basically saying like, "Hey, like." I'm here for the little people. I'm here for the unjust, and I'm gonna give them justice or whatever. And dude, I can't wait to see what Bradley does because there is a reason why he's talking to Bruce. And we don't know that reason yet.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The baby that we assume now is dead is named Helena, right?
Yep.
Do you think this is how Bruce gets his name for his daughter?
I could see it.
You know, because King has been very adamant about that family dynamic, you know, and this could be Bruce learning about what happened to his family's past. Now, a lot of people will be like, oh, freaking Bruce should have learned about all of that kind of stuff, you know, like he's the world's greatest detective. But I think even in reality can be blinded by family, right? Like Bruce doesn't want to look up how bad his family really was, probably. Like he might think like, yeah, I heard a lot of bad things, but you know, I just care about my parents, you know? And so he probably doesn't want to look up how maybe corrupt the Wayne family used to be. And he's just trying to like live in the now. So I would be very curious if that's where King is going with this, because if this baby's dead now, I want to know how the family tree works. You know what I mean? Like, do they have another kid? Like, because his parents got to be born at some point. Like, so I'm curious on where this is going to go. And again, it's just one of those things. This ends, and I want to read the next issue already. And so very curious. But yeah, that page turn to the baby dead with that line of a mother knows, I was like, fucking perfection. Like that was fantastic. Because you could have had a stupid monologue there with a bunch of like, oh shit, children are our greatest blah 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 blah.
I was gonna say, I feel like you could have. There's another version of this book where Tom King has like a giant inner monologue going like all the way across the top of the page and down, talking about all of that stuff. But just the simple phrase, a mother knows.
Yeah. Less is more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how it goes, which is what a lot of writers don't understand when it comes to Batman. They always have Batman super monologue and talk and talk and talk and talk when Batman can say everything in a few words. And more people need to start doing that. But that is the end of the comics. This is fucking fantastic. I'm excited to see where Azrael goes. I'm excited to see where Gotham City Year One goes. Yeah, I think, you know, there is some good stuff, even though we're not liking Batman 130. Before we get out of here, I want to know, where do you see Chip going next? We'll bookend with Batman 130 talk.
I don't know. The idea of him being transported into possibly a different Earth. You saying, "Oh, Bruce Wayne is there, but Batman isn't." I can easily assume that his Batsuit got like completely damaged from the teleportation or whatever.
I mean, he
it
looks like
fried.
he's burnt to a crisp. Yeah,
Exactly. So I could see why Batman has to be out of commission for a little bit if he's not on his own Earth. But I don't know. Like, and it's really difficult to like, and don't get me wrong, if a book is too predictable, it's gonna get boring.
Yeah.
With this, like, with how kind of crazy, dumb, and stupid the first 6 issues were, I don't want to start off the 7th issue being like, oh, let's go for another round and do the exact same kind of thing and be just as crazy, just as stupid, and kind of having these moments of no real story. I don't want that. I want an actual story, and I don't know if we're going to get that.
Well, here's the thing. Drew actually said it himself. He was talking about how he was like, you know, even with the ridiculousness of 130, I'm still reading it. He was like, but let's find out what happens when they change the artist, which is what happens in the next arc. We're getting a new artist. So the crazy wacky could really work with George's writing, but can it work with a different artist? Because I mean, Batcat is the best example. I was loving Batcat until issue 7 came out. And I was just like, oh my God, the art does not help the storytelling here. So if Chip is going to still be doing the wacky, zany craziness of Batman, and he's going to get like, you know, let's just say a more realistic type of artist, I don't think that's going to work, because I've seen I've seen the artist that's doing the covers, at least, that seems to has some really good art. So I'm just like, I don't know if wacky and zany works with that style. So I'm curious on where we're going to go with that. I don't know. At the end of the day, I just don't understand what it is with Marvel writers that have success coming to DC and just shit in the bed. Like, I don't get it. And I think Chip is a huge Grant Morrison fan. It tells in him just repeating his stories, because that's what it seems like. He's doing so many things Morrison has done, which I love Tom King, but like, I wouldn't want to retell Tom King's stories. You know what I mean? Like, you can pull elements. Like, there's a difference between pulling elements and just retelling. Like, oh yeah, like it would be me telling, like, I don't know, the Bane story all over again. You know what I mean? Like, why would I do that? Like, well, bringing back Bane for an arc and doing all this kind of shit. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, you got to do something different. But I don't know. I don't understand the mindset there. Chip has said on Twitter, and I do think this was jokingly, if you don't like the comic, fuck you. Like, you know, that was a joke, I think, because he was responding to somebody or responding to something. But, you know, some people do say that even jokes tell half truths. So we'll see. I think he's just from a different era, and we're going to keep getting zany Batman, and I just don't care for it. But
yeah.
Anyways, what do you got going on this week, Clay?
So this week, you should, at this point in time, because we did record a little early this week, a day earlier, I do have an episode of Star Wars Alliance. We're going to be talking a little bit of news, but a lot of comics. So if you like Star Wars comics, we're going to be reviewing a lot of those this week. So go check out Star Wars Alliance. And other than that, not much. Like Juice teased, I'm working a lot on the future of this channel. He's working a lot on the future of this channel, and we're hoping that 2023 is pretty good to us, but we'll have more of that later in the month, if not next year.
Yeah, we will talk about that when we're a good chunk through the project. But yeah, keep an eye out for that in 2023. But yeah, I am actually I have not been streaming or anything lately. I need to post shorts. I haven't even posted one today. But I am just trying to get ahead on my job so not have to worry about it at the end of the month. But at the same time, I'm trying to get super far ahead so I don't have to worry about it, so I can start just focusing on the new channel and just for the next 30 days, like work on content till I can launch in hopefully the start of the year. Not January 1st, but just maybe January, February sometime. But yeah, so anyways, that's going to be it for this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. As always, he is Fanboy Clay. I am Juice Wayne. And remember, Batman is awesome. See you guys next time.